Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Country Boy Cryptids. Tonight, we have a special guest, Mrs. Mrs. Robin McCray. Hey, Robin, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here, Chris.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you coming on.
Sure.
That's for sure. Um, I'll let you start off by, telling everybody when this started
Um,
and stuff about you there.
Basically, when I was little, I wish I could pinpoint an exact time or age. I can't, other than I never knew they weren't there. I can remember being, 2 and 3 years old and looking out and seeing faces looking in the window. By age 4, I would go outside and they would be outside and I would see them and they would stand in the tree line. By the time I was in kindergarten, first grade, they would be in the tree line when I would ride my bike. It was just a progression. I didn't realize that not everybody had that because that was my normal. So it was a little bit, unconventional. Mine spoke before I really felt like I could formulate words. So it was just normal for me. And then as I got older, no matter where I lived, they showed up. The dogmen were there. The Bigfoot primarily were there. ETs, UFOs, all of it. It was just everywhere I went. And it still is. You know, I had, when I was in Michigan, it was fabulous because the one place I lived at, we had 10 acres and they would just walk freely uncloaked all around the yard whenever they wanted to. It was very common. And looking in the window, and they'd knock on the window at night and want me outside. And I'd walk outside and sit out there and they'd walk around me, and chit chat. They would talk in their language. I'd get words in my language, as well as the mind speak. So that was kind of fun. And then when we moved to South Carolina, I thought, man, it's probably going to just drop right off, but it never has. It's been pretty consistent. Obviously, sometimes more than others, but it's been consistent. Hey, Duke, World Bigfoot Radio,
Yeah, I've been watching some of his stuff. I'm new at
phenomenal.
this, so I'm trying to learn everybody. As I
If you
go.
want really good, solid information, World Bigfoot Radio is phenomenal. Tom Curtis has North Carolina Cryptid Paranormal. He's
Yeah.
phenomenal. He's got great stuff. Dave Scott gets some great stuff on Spaced Out Radio. I mean, a lot of these places just have got phenomenal stuff. Bigfoot Michigan Rob has got it. Texas Front Porch, they get some good stuff on that. Tracy Bush has In the Dark with Tracy Bush. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I can't list them all. If I forget anybody, I'm sorry, but they really have got some good ones. But Duke is the reason everybody even found out I'm here. Thank you, sweetheart. Um, because I met him accidentally through Igor Borstov. Igor stays at my house quite a bit when he's in the States. And he was at my house and he said, "Oh, I'm doing this webcast with um, Brian Sullivan." And I said, "I don't know who that is," which is Duke. And he said, "But if I'm going to do it, I want you and Janice Carter with me." And Janice was visiting at the time. So we got on the show, excuse me, had a lot of fun on it, got off the show, and Duke and I just clicked. I swear he was my brother in another life. Like, we really just clicked. And he's been so incredibly good to me and kind to me. And the thing I like about it is the people he gets on his show are so legit, it's not even funny. Thank you, Primal Cry. She knows I've been really sick. And so we've had a lot of fun. I've done a lot of shows for him, always will. He's awesome. He's the best. Hi, Tyro. I love all these people. I tell you what, people have been really kind to me. I was really nervous when I came forward about 4 years ago because after I did the international conference in Russia, and there I did not talk about paranormal stuff. It was just the physical aspect. I came home and certain people, which I'm not going to throw names out there, were incredibly vicious. And I
Oh, I
thought,
believe that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not bothering anybody. I told my truth about what went on at my house. I showed the photos from my house. I mean, I'm not just going to talk about stuff if I can't back it up. But I was getting attacked. I had kids. You don't want that for your kids. And so I thought, screw this noise. I'm done. I did my bit for humanity. I went out and said what was out there. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the Sasquatch Genome Project, which I will go to my grave saying was 100% legitimate. And nobody knew all the information on it because she got love you, babe, got so attacked that she just shut the rest of it down. So not all the truth. Hi, Danielle. The whole truth didn't get to come out, unfortunately. It was really a travesty. So I did that, and then I went quiet again. And then, like 4 or 5 years ago, I met Duke and met another friend of mine, Dr. John Stamey, as Scary Cast on Monday nights, and I co-host with him. Thanks, Linda. And so I went ahead and he did a conference for him, and then it just kind of snowballed. So I do the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference every year. This year it's the third week in April, and then I do the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. This year it'll be the first.
Oh, okay.
So okay, I just kind of do my own little thing with lots of cryptids around. It's pretty chaotic. People come over to my house, and it's not like I can guarantee every person that comes here is going to see something. Generally, I don't have a lot of people come just because of the safety of the cryptids. You know, more their comfort than mine. And they generally end up seeing something, you know, whether it's an apparition go up and down my staircase, whether it's a Bigfoot looking in the window. Dr. John Stamey was at my house, and he went to get his luggage out of the car, and the bushes started shaking, and Milwaukee was standing in the bushes because she had a little boy at the time, and letting him know that, you know, she didn't want him any closer to the bushes. And then he walked in the backyard thinking he was getting away from it, and one did a belly crawl across the backyard. So we get activity. Is
that the spider crawl they talk about?
Yeah, it's actually really funny when they do it, and it's unbelievable how quickly they can move when they do it. It reminds me, just personally, if you watch the old Scooby-Doo cartoons,
when he
gets on his fingers and his toes and you hear that dink, 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 every time I see them do it, I mentally hear that dink, dink, dink noise in my head. And they do, but they'll go right up and take their arms and just swipe your legs out from under you. They think it's funny. I mean, they've got just a wicked sense of humor. It's kind of warped, but they've got a sense of humor.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from other people, you know, that
they do. They have played some really good pranks. They really did. Igor was at the house one time, and I was living in Michigan at the time. And at that time, and I don't recommend this to people, I don't put food out for them anymore. Like if they'll come up and want food, you know, if they have one that's sick or something and they need a spice or an herb, I don't mind doing that. But I don't put food out on a regular basis, because if you are not dealing with a really good group and you stop it, they can tear the house down around you. But at that time, I didn't know better. I didn't have anybody in the Bigfoot world. I was by myself in it, and had already made friends with them anyway. And I thought, I'll put food out for them. So I did. And Igor was there, and he said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to watch this feeding area where we would put all the food at. And I'm going to watch it until they come to get the food, because every night they came to get it. I said, that's fine. You want to stay up all night? Go ahead. I'm going to bed. So I went to bed, and he stayed out there all night. About 5 o'clock in the morning, he got out of the truck. He stayed in the truck and was spying on him, and nothing happened. He went in the house to get a cup of coffee and used the restroom, and we had put a jar with chicken legs in it out at this feeding area, and it had a lid on it. And he was waiting to see what they would do with it, and they didn't come and get it. So he went in to go get a cup of coffee, use the restroom. He walks back out, and here's the jar with the lid off of it and the chicken legs out of it sitting on the hood of the truck.
Oh my God.
He was so mad. It's like after all night long, you know, but they're pranksters. They ran off my cable guy when he came out to my house to get the cable going. And he had got here late in the day, and he was supposed to be there earlier. And he said, you know, I forgot these wires that I've got to have to run your cable. I'll just come tomorrow. And I said, no, you'll go get them and do it today when you were scheduled to do it. Oh, thank you, Sasquatch. And I was like, no, I need it to end today. And so he left. He took longer than he was supposed to. By the time he got back, it was starting to get dark. So we had like the vehicles out in the yard with the headlights on for him. And he's standing out there, and where the post was not far from the bushes that Milwaukee and her son would hang out in. And we didn't even know them at the time, but they were in there. And this guy came in my house, absolutely terrified, just burst in the front door. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, please please don't make me go out there. Man, please don't make me go out there. And I said, what is wrong with you? And he said, there's something in the bushes. I can hear it. It's shaking the bushes. It's taller than I am. It's huge. And I said, oh, it's a raccoon. You know, it's a possum. Everything is great. And he's like, please, ma'am, please don't make me do this. And I said, you're really terrified. And he said, I am petrified. I said, okay, go. He said, I'll be back in the morning. So the next morning, another guy came instead of him. And I said, where's your friend? And he said, we can't get him out here. He threatened to quit if we come out here. And I said, oh my gosh. But the hysterical part was when my husband got up to go to work the next morning, he opened the front door. And I had said the night before, I said, I cannot believe this, all for a bunch of wires. Like it should have been done yesterday. All this for a bunch of wires. He opened the front door and here's this wad of wires that had nothing to do with cable TV, but they had gone and got wires from somewhere, and this huge ball like this of wires were sitting up against our door.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. They really like to mess with you, don't they?
Oh, they do. They do. You know, for the most part, I don't have too big of a problem with destruction. I mean, they're pretty good about it. They have broke some things. It's like dealing with Bam Bam Rubble. Hi, Lori. It really is, because they don't, the kids don't understand how strong they are. And they've literally broken my faucet off trying to turn the faucet on.
Oh my gosh.
And like I have a 2.5 car garage, but it's one gigantic door. And I have in my garage, I had dog kennels, which I don't have them in there now, but I also had a kennel that have my mini pigs in it. I have 2 mini pigs. At the time I had 3. And I left, the door was down, everything was fine. I came back and in the bottom of the door, it had been pushed in and bent the wheels right off the track so that they could wiggle in through the bottom of the door. And they had let the pigs out and were in there playing and they were having a field day. But I've gone out there in the morning when the dogs were out there. All the dogs were let out of the pens. The pigs were let out of the pens. It was like just a freak. Nobody got hurt, but you know, it was like just absolute craziness.
Wow.
But they do love pranks, and their idea of pranks and ours are a little bit different.
Right.
But they are helpful. I mean, we had a tree come down on some wire on the electrical wires in the front yard, and it had sparked and it was setting fire to the leaves. It was fall time. It was setting fire to the leaves that were on the ground.
Oh no.
And they were just pounding like crazy on our bedroom walls, trying to get us to realize it. And Pat and I his mind speaks brilliantly. And so we were both asking him what was wrong. And they were speaking so fast we couldn't understand. We did not know what they were talking about. And they kept up. And Pat and I are like, something's definitely wrong. So we went out and there was a fire in the front yard and they did put it out. So, you know, we were very fortunate there, but so they do come in handy. They're good security.
Yeah. I got a question for you. Someone new like me.
Mm-hmm.
This spring I'm planning on going. My parents have a 30-acre farm, but there's a lot more. They live way back in the hollow. It's all woods everywhere. For someone like me that wants to gift, should I start with like marbles, toys?
Yeah, you know, gifting is great, and it's a great way to let them know that you want to be friends. If you are, you know, make sure it's the bigger marbles. You don't want anybody to choke. Remember, they have kids, and they are going to be kids. Matchbox cards are good. Feathers, beads, white rocks mean friendship. A lot of people use crystals. Look up, Google search what those crystals can be used for before you do, because they will use them for paranormal things as well. And you don't want to give them something that they could use to hurt anybody. You know, quartz is nice, rose quartz especially. But those type of things are great. You know, if you're going to leave apples, like a bag of apples here and there, but not consistently, then you're not going to hurt anything. Like Duke from World Bigfoot Radio, he's got this phenomenal relationship with the ones up in the mountains in Montana. And now when he comes, he'll have me ask them, you know, what they want. And he literally gets a shopping list.
Oh, wow.
And so he gets a shopping list and he goes and gets it and takes it to him. But he's not there every weekend. So it's not like they are you're never going to feed them enough to fill them. It's not even going to be possible. Any food you give them is a snack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you don't want them to get dependent on the junk, and not really junk food, but on the snacks. And so if it's just occasionally, there's nothing wrong with it. You
Yeah.
know, apples, some of them like the pears. Peanut butter is a huge hit. And the fun thing about the peanut butter is they've got to unscrew the jar to get to it. And a lot of time you can get fingerprints where they've swiped the peanut butter out of it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
You know, so there's a lot of great things that you do to gift. If you want to gift on a regular basis, then I would, my own opinion, you know, is to go ahead and try to find the non-food things and just
Yeah.
occasionally put a few food in. I did it. I was very fortunate. The group that I was interacting with was really, really kind. And I was late one night with the food, and I thought, good God, I'm going to go home and the house is going to be torn down. I
Mm-hmm.
had got hung up at a church event with my kids, and I came back and I had these buckets with snaps that were on eye hooks I'd put on the tree. And they had unsnapped the buckets, taken in my front porch, and put them upside down on my front porch. Like, hey, you idiot, did you forget something? And yeah, oh, it was a riot. And I thought, oh God, I'm in big trouble. And I can hear them in my head going off when I pulled in. So I drove up to the door and told my kids, I said, go ahead, you know, go right in. So they went in, and my sons had left their window open, I don't know, about 6 to 8 inches, and their curtains were in front of it. They had grabbed the curtains and pulled the curtains out, but then the curtain rod got stuck. So the curtains were hanging half out the window and half in the bedroom.
Oh, no.
And I
Oh,
said, I'm going to
no.
go take food out. You guys go in there. And they didn't do anything or try anything with me. I just went out there and I hollered to them. I said, it's finally here, you guys. And you could hear it sound like freight trains coming through the woods. But they never got aggressive. I was very lucky, but you know, they could. I know people that they've really tried to tear their house down around them for it.
Yeah, I want to. I don't know if there's any up there on the property. I mean, I've lived up there since I was
Have you
7 years
seen any
old.
structures? I mean, I would
I
look for your structures. But once you
Yeah.
find an area with a lot of heavy structures, you know, everybody, when they find all these structure areas, you're so intrigued, myself included, with these structures. You go deeper into that area to look at all these wonderful things that they've created. I'm like structure girl. I love them. I could look at them all day.
Hmm.
But through the years, I've like gotten to the point where you're going deeper into their area where they feel secure. So now I tell people, if you're finding the structures, you're in the right area, but don't like push it too far. You know, go in that area, maybe on the outskirts of it or a little ways in, but like don't take over their space. And for
Yeah.
God's sake, don't mess with the structures. I know a lot of people like to go in and say, well, I'm going to move this piece to see if they react to it. You know, if you get the right one, they'll react to it with a blow to the head. So, hi,
Oh,
Brian.
wow.
So, I mean, you know, you're talking about if you are in your home and a stranger just comes in, walks in the door, comes in, Darkwoods, he knows what they did to my door, um,
Mhm.
and comes into your house and starts rearranging things in your house. That's essentially what's happening when you go into their space. And yeah, they like my animals. Duke is talking about my animal rescue.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, big time. We get a lot of activity with that. But yeah, you want to just, you know, be respectful. That's the key thing. They will respect you if you're respecting them, but they're going to wait to see what your plan is first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in regards to what Duke was saying about the animal rescue, um, I had 2 kennels in my front yard for the new dogs that would come in because I didn't want them in the backyard where everybody else was. And we had we had a white dog that was out there. She was quite large and she was absolutely wild. We never could get hands on her. Like when she was tiny, I could, but she was not a good dog at all. She was very bad, and she would constantly break out. And I would look out in my front yard, and they'd be carrying her around the front yard.
Oh my
But yet
gosh.
we couldn't get anywhere near her. And they loved her because she was white, but we couldn't keep her in a pen. She would dig out, she'd break out, and then she'd terrorize the neighborhood. And I'm like, you guys, I need help. Get her back in. And they would bring her back. She's the only reason we ever got her back in. I came home one day and she's laying in the pen and like she was tranced because they do have a way to trance them. And she never moved. Where normally, if she would have come in there to get food or water, if I would have come up to her, she would have taken off. And she was completely tranced. And they had pulled the doghouse in front of the doorway so she couldn't get out the door. And at the same time, when they tried to shut the door, you have that horse-shaped prong that goes over the post to close a kennel door, so the door locks. They squeezed that horseshoe-shaped piece closed. That's solid steel. You can't, even heated, you can't undo it. And they pinched it together.
Yeah, I seen the picture of the Duke had that you was on the
Yep.
show, and
Yeah, that was mine.
That is like squeeze tight. I don't even know how they do it. You'd have to
I
have
don't either. And
so
we
much
have a great
power.
I have a great Pyrenees, and they love all my dogs. I just want this for the record. Everybody says they want to kill the dogs and the cats. I have 17 dogs at my house right now. They will play with every single one of them. I've got 25 to 30 cats because as they get dumped here or whatever, I have pens outside for a lot of them where the boys are in one, the girls are in the other. Who's ever neutered or spayed goes in the middle one. And they will go in, they'll take their food and fill their buckets with pine cones, but they have never hurt an animal ever.
That's awesome.
It's the way I address it with them. It's like I will go out there and say, these are my babies, just like you have babies. I don't hurt your animals. I don't hurt your children. You don't hurt mine or my animals. I've not had a problem. But they love my Pyrenees because she's white. White's a sacred thing to them. And she goes out in the backyard and they just adore her. And they'll put stuff in the backyard to play with the dogs. It's insanity. So I'll go out there every day and I'll walk the perimeter of the fenced in area to make sure there's nothing in the yard that can hurt them. I walked in the house one day and I looked out 15 minutes later and the Pyrenees is carrying around a 2x4.
Oh my gosh.
Just a 2x4 randomly in her mouth. And I'm like, what in the world? So I get the 2x4, another day I have a couple of the dogs come up and they've got boots hanging out of their mouth. And I'm like, where are these things coming from? They weren't in the yard before. Now, not even a week ago, I have a couple of golden retrievers, and then my daughter and her husband are staying with us while they're looking for a home. And their dogs were out back with ours. And I look in the backyard and they're playing with this long, look like a stick. I go out there and it's a wicker broom and the bristles are all gone off of it, except where it's anchored. And I'm like, I've never owned one of these. Brooms, yes, but not the wicker kind, or the straw brooms, I guess they call them. And it was in the backyard. The dogs are having a field day. Sticks, they're forever tossing branches in there so they can play with them. It's crazy. They'll come right up and climb over the fence in the backyard. If it's dark out and I leave the dogs out very long, they'll come in the backyard with them. But never have they hurt them. Never. I've been very fortunate.
That's awesome. We used to have white German Shepherds. I love them.
My best friend has them.
I love them dogs.
Yep.
They're
She
so
has one
smart.
named Houdini, and he's like 120 pounds. He's just massive.
We named ours White Cloud. That was his name.
Oh, I like that.
That's what we named him.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be really good with the animals. Like I said, I've just not had a problem. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
But like I said, I normally, when we moved, it was like I went out there and said, okay, this is the way it is. Not that they listen to me. I don't want anybody to think it's that, but just kind of saying these are the boundaries. I don't hurt yours. You don't hurt mine. They have pets they bring with them. I have 3 that come through here about once every 3 or 4 months, and they've got a cougar with them all the time. So, and I don't shoot at the cougar, and the cougar doesn't bother anything. But they will use anything out in the woods as a pet. Not only will they use the animals in the woods to do work for them, they will use the animals in the woods as a pet. They get coyotes. They get the fox, it's been seen multiple places, wolves. And Igor and I were witness to when they had used raccoons at my home in Michigan. Every night, they would send the same 3 raccoons in. They would come in, they checked all the food buckets, all the things, because I had a ton of food I put out for them, because I had like 60 individuals that I had written a chart of and who was what, and they would come in and check all the buckets, never touch it, never eat it, just make sure the food was there. The bigger one would go to the top of the tree and scream in the direction that the forest people would come in at, and then they would all come down and leave the opposite way, and they would come in and get their food. Like they use the animals, they use birds to watch us.
That's awesome. I mean, it amazes me. I mean, like a lot of things that you talk about, it blows my mind because it makes total sense. I mean,
it really does. It's shocking to everybody. I get that. There's days it's shocking to me. Pat and I look at each other and say, we're really not crazy. That did just happen, But the one thing I know is I can take this to my grave. I've never lied about any of it. I can't change what people believe and what they don't. But I refuse to make something up or change the truth and put it in a box for people to make it easier to digest. I will try to put it in the easiest manner possible because I know it's a lot to swallow. But I'm not going to change it. I can't change it because I can't change the truth. I just can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. There's something else, I'm telling you. And the other cryptids all follow them. Like we've had cat people here, lizard people here. All my photos I usually, send them to Duke, and Duke will put them up on the show at some point.
Yeah, I got the ones you sent me here. If you want to go through them.
Yeah, like I don't have a problem. They're all copywritten because they're on World Bigfoot Radio, so I usually don't have a problem sharing with them. I think they're pretty decent pictures. They're not. I'm not gonna say they're Patterson Gimlin, but they're not blobs.
There's some pretty good ones here.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And
I'll bring them up, and you can tell people. Let's see here. I don't know what to start. This is my favorite one. This one right here.
Yeah, that handprint. Actually, that is my husband's pillow. And the thing that's so cool about this pillow, what that nobody sees, is the other side of that pillow is the Star Wars Chewbacca.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Honest to God, what had happened was Pat was at work. I was home alone. And I went through, cleaned house. We have a sitting area outside of our bedroom. And I have a 2-story home, but our bedroom's on the first floor. And I walked in front of the bedroom, and there was all this white powder on the floor, which a lot of people that have seen a lot of their handprints and stuff have noticed this powder. And I thought, I just cleaned everything. Where did this powder come from? So I went to go get a dustpan and a broom, and I came back, and most of it was gone, and there were finger swipes in it. So I cleaned up the rest of it thinking, I don't know what this is, but okay. I dumped it. I never went in the bedroom because I'd already been in the bedroom. I had swept, I had made the bed, I had cleaned everything in it. There was nothing left to do in there. I had no reason to go in. So Pat got home from work. He walked in the bedroom, took a shower. He came out and he said, hey, so what's with the big handprint? I said, what are you talking about? He said, the one on the back of my Star Wars pillow. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I made the bed today. It wasn't on there then. And he had that pillow.
Sorry about the kids.
That's all right. That pillow was sitting on a chair next to the bed. And that's the handprint that was left there. And then 2 days later, at the time he worked for FedEx, and he had taken his shorts for FedEx off and sat him down in the bathroom. And he went in the bathroom, and we had a smaller child-size handprint on his shorts. So, yeah, we've gotten handprints found all over the house, refrigerator, footprints on the floor.
Okay. That's a big hand. I mean,
it's not quite as big as it looks. The picture, I think, is a little deceiving. It is a good size.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's a very big man, and it's about his size. It's bigger than mine. The thing that I find really telling about it is if you look at the first finger and the thumb, how open that is.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It looks like really, I mean, compared to our hand.
And you can see the dermal ridges in it, and it doesn't run the same way as ours. So Igor, when he came, that also, by the way, that handprint took months, almost a year to come off. They have like this oily texture to their skin and a residue. And then whatever this this powder substance they keep using. It sticks to things and it's impossible to get off. I mean, I have handprints on my car that's been there for 2 years that even through going through a car wash won't remove them.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that it's like a sticky substance. Like
Yeah, it is. It's really odd.
That's awesome. That's an awesome print.
Yeah. We were pretty excited about it. Like I said, it was quite the surprise. And I was in the house all day. I never even knew they did it because it wasn't there when I left the bedroom. And then it was, a few hours later when he got home from work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's one.
Yeah, that's my buddy. I actually have that one. I don't think you could see it, but he's on this cup as well. See if I can get it to turn.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I had it put on a cup. Yeah, he's very dear to me.
I mean,
that guy saved my life a couple of times.
How big is he really? I mean,
now at that time he was about 9 foot. Now he's about 10 and a half.
Oh
and the
God.
only reason why I can say he's about that tall is Pat and I were asleep one night, and I have 2 windows in my bedroom. I live out in the woods, and they always hate it when I cover the windows. Everybody in the free world wants their windows covered except me because they like to look in and I like to look over and see their faces. So the windows didn't have the curtains closed. And I woke up at 2:30. I have no idea what woke me up. And I noticed that there was no light coming in the window closest to Pat, but yet there was light in the other one. So I looked over at it again because I was half awake, and this particular guy was standing there, and he crouched down and looked in the window and smiled at me. And I looked at Pat. I woke him up and I said, "Hey, apparently I've been entertaining him. It's your turn to entertain him. I'm going back to bed." So I rolled over. But because I live in the South and there's hurricanes, the bottom of my window is built off the ground 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the window is a 5 foot tall window. So that puts it at 10 feet. And he was crouched down to get his head to look into the top of the window. So I figure he's about 10 to 10 and a half now. He's a big boy. He's the dearest thing that God ever put on this earth, but he is a big boy. Trust that boy more than I probably should, but I trust him with my life because he saved it enough times. I'm a lot of work for him, I think.
Let's see here. Here's the next.
This is another one I'm very close to. The one you just showed and this one are actually from Michigan. They followed me to South Carolina. This is another one that means the world to me. He actually came right up to me one day in broad daylight and got about 10 feet from me. And I just stood there looking at him, and he stood there looking at me. This picture was actually taken in my backyard. He was back there. One of my mini pigs had gotten out, and the dog next door had ran over and was barking at it. And he was standing back there, and he called the dog to him and got hold of the dog so I could get my mini pig.
Wow.
All my photos are taken at my house. I have one picture of one that was, in the Cumberland Mountains, but most of them are all my house. This was in my side yard, in my backyard. He was just, here's the thing. If you take photos, random pictures, and they're there and they're cloaked, they show up. And I heard him moving around in the bushes, and he was mind speaking. And so I just started taking random photos, and that's how I got him. He didn't have a lot of hair on his face, but he did on his head and, towards his shoulders.
Wow.
This one was in Michigan. There's actually 3, and it took a while. I wasn't aware there was 3. Igor figured it out. That little blob that you see in the bottom right-hand corner is actually my ponytail.
Okay.
We found out very early on that if you take photos of me in the woods, there's a really good chance you're going to see them show up in the photos. And I hate my photo taken, so it really sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my ponytail. What you're seeing there's a baby's face in front. And then on the other side of the branch, you see the mom's eyebrow, or like the brow ridge. But if you look on the very top of that, I used to think it was a conchial head. It's not. It's another small infant. There's like 2 eyes and a nose.
Yeah, there. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I see the eyes.
Yeah. So you end up seeing, 3 sets of eyes there.
So it's two babies and a
Yeah,
mama?
there's a toddler in front and an infant on the top of her head.
Wow. Um, how do you know how often they have babies? Is it like
You know,
us, or
I
is it different?
I am going to be honest and tell you my thoughts. Can I prove it? No.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think it was a gestation of 11 months, and then I was corrected and said, no, it was 9. So when I asked them, they said 10, but then they're looking at 10 lunar months, which means the same thing that we are.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some that have gone 11 months because the females, like when they've told me they were pregnant and I've waited and waited, I'm like, okay, it should have been born and it wasn't. And it actually ended up a month past that. So I want to say, to be safe about it, somewhere between 9 to 11 months. And they keep telling me they go by lunar months and it's 10.
I have another question for you that I just it popped in my head. Okay, I know they got the clans.
Hmm.
I've heard you talk about the clan. Now, they have daughters. They'll have daughters and
Oh,
sons.
yeah.
Do they go to other clans and meet
Yeah.
other ones and then bring them back, or how?
It depends on the individual. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we have to remember these are a type of people. No matter how much we want to think that they're an animal, the truth is that they're clearly not any more animal than we are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we have animals in our genetic background as well,
Oh
but
yeah.
they are a type of people, and they do. The one may find a mate from a different clan. Then there's the option: do they go to that clan, stay with the one they're in, or do they go out on their own? I haven't noticed in my experiences, this doesn't mean that this is the end of the save all the answer, but what I've noticed is the females will move on where the males are at. But I've also seen, some that have brought a mate to them. There are several that have gone off on their own. I just think it really depends on the clan. It depends on the individual, just like with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was kind of interesting. I
Yeah,
wondered
it
how
really
that
is.
worked. To keep from
Yeah,
inbreeding, you know what I mean, and stuff like
yeah,
that.
I think that to a degree, I think they're relatively careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what their protocols are on that. I think it's like with everything else, sometimes things happen. But it's actually funny because for the longest time, I thought that, they were like had a relationship one on one, and they don't always. I mean, some do. Don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
some do, but it's not. I've heard from other sources that, and I don't like to name people's names unless I were to ask them first. So it's not that I'm trying to exclude anybody.
I
Um,
understand that. Yeah.
but I've heard from other sources that they will take more than one wife. The ones that I've encountered around me, I've not noticed that. I was told that the one did have more than one wives, but I've never seen evidence of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen him with the one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I kind of figured they went to other clans and got a
Yeah, they
husband or a
do. They'll
wife.
separate. They don't want all that inbreeding, I don't think either. And just like with our kids, they grow up and they get to the point where they want to go off and have their life,
Right.
and I
Right.
think they do a lot of that as well. Now, like I
Sorry.
said, the one in Michigan, I had 60 individuals in there. So I
Oh
know
my
that a
gosh.
lot had come. It was a big clan. I mean, somebody asked me one time what, in my opinion, was like a standard clan size. I couldn't be honest and say that I know, because I've seen members with only 13 in the clan. I've seen individuals that are by themselves with just them and their mate and their children. And then we had the one in Michigan that had 60.
Wow,
So
that's a lot. I mean,
it's a lot, especially when you're documenting all the different ones that come in and you're writing down the markings and an approximate size, and if they have children and I'm like, all these are different. None of these are the same. They don't look the same. They don't act the same. They come in every range of color, skin color, facial structure, body structure, hair length. Some you'll see more than one color on. The one that you had showed previously that was white, he has on his upper left upper arm, he has a little black stripe in there that reminds me of a lightning bolt, like if somebody were to get a tattoo.
That's cool.
And this one was just moving through the trees, and it was just a lucky shot.
That's
Seriously.
a good shot. I mean, you can tell.
I love it because you can definitely see the shape, that it's a humanoid figure. He was just walking around. I was out in the backyard, and he was just walking around the yard, you know, in the outline of the yard in the trees watching.
Wow.
And I just started randomly snapping pictures, and I just got lucky. Like, none of them really posed. There's only one that's ever posed for me as the dog man pup, and that was it. And that was only because he wanted me to come outside, and I wasn't going to come outside. And he finally said if I came outside, I could get a picture of him. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went out there and I said, but if I don't get a picture of you, then I'm not talking to you anymore because you're a liar. And I got a picture.
I think I got that one here. I think you.
I think I sent it to you. Yep, that's him. His
fine.
name,
Yeah.
He says his name is Nico. I'm doubtful because I have a cockatiel's named Nico, and I think he's probably heard me talking to the bird, and he liked the name, so he said I'll go with that. But he's an adult now, and he's not aggressive. He doesn't bother anybody. We've got, you know, a few that are around here and have just been really kind. In fact, my very dear friend called me. She wasn't aware that she had Bigfoot in her yard until I found footprints and was, you know, saying, oh, look at this and look at this. And then she started seeing him peeking in her window. But she went outside. She's the one with the German Shepherds. And she went outside last night to let the dogs out. And there were two dogmen that were standing on the other side of the fence. They didn't growl. They didn't, you know, they weren't bad. They just watched her, and it scared the crap out of her. She went back in the house, but they no sign of aggression from them at all, nor did she pick up any bad feeling from them.
I mean, this picture, you can see the nose, you can see the
snout,
yeah.
I had somebody told me it was a bear, and I'm like, that is not a bear. He was about 30 feet up in a pine tree. You know, I mean, they all climb, all the cryptids climb, and he was up there. He was a little bugger. He just wanted me to come out so he could see me. That's all he wanted. He said, come out and let me see you. And I said, you know, I don't want to come out. I was laying, it was still light. I was 8:30 at night, but we had just moved in, had been unpacking all day long. I had had a shower in my pajamas, laying on the bed watching TV, and he wanted me outside. And I'm like, another day, you know, and he's like, no, tonight. I'm like, no, well, I'll let you get my picture if you come out. And I said, okay, we're going to play this game. But if I don't get a picture, I'm done talking to you because now you're a liar. And there's my picture. So he's been around ever since.
He looks jet black too. I mean, just jet black.
He is. We've got a couple that I've seen as they're walking through the woods, and they've got a little bit of a brown tint to them. And I've talked to people that have seen white ones. Now, like, especially with the forest people, the thing is, just because they're white, it does not, one, make them old, or two, make them an albino. Okay. As they get older, can they get gray hair? Certainly we do. And it is a hair. It's not fur, it's hair. And so they absolutely can get gray to the point that they're white. But there's so many of them that are born white. And it doesn't mean they're an albino. There's all the different skin tones. They have Caucasian, they have a gray, they have a dark, you know, a chocolate colored, a black colored. So they're, you know, it's just, they're all individuals. You can't typecast them or think that they're all going to look a certain way, because you'll never be able to do it. This one is her name is Trudy, and she's actually a hybrid of a Bigfoot and a Dogman, and you cannot see her buddy next to her. If you're facing this picture, not where her arm's sticking out, but on the other side, which if you're facing the picture, it would be on the left. You can see a little bit of a dark head. That was Buddy. That was one that she hung around with. He's a Bigfoot. But she is a product. Yeah, she is a product. It looks like a teddy bear's face, almost to the point of a Dogman. One of her parents was a Dogman. The other one was a Bigfoot. And if you look down her leg, the reason that leg looks so heavy is if you really look hard, it's because her tail is sticking off to the side of it.
Wow.
These guys were playing out in the field next to my property back in Michigan, and they were peeking around bushes. And my daughter was actually the one that realized they were doing this, because we went to walk back in the woods like we did every day. She looked out in the field and she said, Mom, I keep seeing heads popping up. Like there's heads popping around pine trees. There's heads popping over the tall grass. So I just very quickly took my camera, because Igor has it embedded into my head. I go nowhere without a camera. And
Right.
Duke has made sure I have a very nice camera to do the same thing. And I just started taking random pictures. So as they were popping heads up and sticking their head out, I was able to grab some pictures.
Wow. That's a good picture. I mean, you can see the arm, you can see the
Yeah.
head, you can see the
A lot
leg.
of people say that the dog man will not be associated in any way with the Bigfoot. And in certain areas, I believe that is true. But again, it's the discretion of the clan. In my areas, I have both that intermingle. I just have not had that issue, and they seem to get along okay. You know, I mean, they're all sharing the territories.
Right.
These two were funny to me because she was with them all the time. You know, that's a close up of that other one where I said the baby's on top of her head. That you can see a little bit of the nose of the baby on top of her head as well.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You took some good pictures. I mean,
Oh, thank you. And this one is the one that we showed first that I have on my cup. That's just a farther distance. The
mhm.
actual full footage of this is hysterical because in it is a picture of Igor Borstev with a big old smile on his face, not having any clue that there was a Bigfoot walking and photobombing him in the back.
Oh my
He
gosh.
did not know. Yeah, we had no idea he was there until the picture. Someone that was visiting my home took the photo. I did not. And because it was at my property, I said, I don't care if photos are taken, but anything that you catch, I also would like as well, since it was at my home. And
Mhm.
I was very lucky that they forwarded the picture to me. And he happened to be in the background. We had no idea. Igor didn't know. But the thing is if you get a picture of them while they're cloaked, they show up on camera. And so nobody saw him in the background because he was cloaked. But they show up on camera.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean, you see a lot of pictures out there, and I can
Yeah.
make out, you can make out the faces and stuff, and the
Yeah.
heads and arms. And
Yep.
and a lot of people say they take pictures, of the woods,
That's the best way to do it,
and then they'll
because
find them in there later. Yeah.
it's not as stressful on them either, because you're not like searching out that one spot. The other thing is if you're going to take a photo, this photo was cropped so that he was in the center. The reality is if you're going to take a photo of them, please do not put them in the middle, because they can distort it with the energy and the vibration they have, and you're going to really get a blur.
So you
So
want to take it off to the side.
yes, put them in any part of that frame except dead center.
That's
And if
that's
you look at the Patty film, Patty is not dead center.
no, she's not. I mean, yeah.
And she's clear. Yeah, and there's Mr. Nico again.
Nope.
I don't know if I ever sent you the picture of do you have the picture of the portal with the UFO?
Yes, I do. I think I was just getting to that one. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm like the own little UFO landing strip here. We had a lot of the UFOs that
Now I know I got this one here.
yeah, that we would okay, that the full picture of this, and I think I sent you the full one too, is there's a triangular shaped craft above this. And this is just about 10 feet off my garage door, front door of the garage. And
Hmm.
there's a triangular shaped craft, and underneath of it is an open portal. And as you can see, there's a head coming out of it.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy when I seen it. I was like,
Yeah, I thought that was pretty crazy too. We got it actually. Janice Carter was staying with me at the time, and we were watching the security cam footage of it. It was quite interesting.
wow. I'm trying to find there's one here.
That beam that you're seeing right there is a beam from a UFO coming down on my bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Would you catch
Yeah,
that on a
that's what I
security
thought too.
cam?
What?
Did you catch it on your security camera
Yeah,
or
we were watching it on the security camera, and I was like, this is crazy. Last May when I got abducted, because I've been abducted on and off my whole life, and I know it sounds crazy. It is what it is. I can't sugarcoat it. But last May, when it happened, like this huge flash of light just came in the bedroom windows. And Pat and I looked at each other, and I already knew something was going to happen. The foots had been agitated. I was antsy all day, felt like I was going to climb out of my skin. And Pat said, I'm going to stay awake. I'm not going to bed. You know, I'm not leaving you by yourself. And I said, you've got work tomorrow, just go to sleep. So he did, and it didn't hit till about 2:00.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you hear of these abduction cases, you know, all the time. I mean, it's crazy.
It gets intense. It gets
Yeah.
intense. I've been more afraid of them when they've come at me in dream state than when I'm awake. The ones in dream state seem to be a lot more cruel. They do things to, you know, not all of the ones in dream state, but almost like they want to terrorize you to get you worked up. And the first time they did it, that got me so upset. I called someone that was very important to me at the time, and I'm like, I'm not coming out from under my blanket. That's it. I'm just not. I'm living under my blanket the rest of my life. And she's like,
right.
okay, stay calm, you know, kind of talked me off the ledge. And then I got mad, not at her, but at them. And I was like, this has to be a learning experience. I got to figure this out. And it was. I found out that when you are in a dream state, you can tell if what's there is really what you think it is, because they can imitate the looks, they can imitate the movements, they cannot imitate the voice. And in that dream was my grandmother that had passed, and she wouldn't speak to me. She looked right, she acted right, but she wouldn't speak to me. And she felt funny. And I noticed that anytime I've been attacked in a dream state situation, they cannot imitate the voice, or if they do try to talk, it's very short-lived. They don't formulate a full sentence. It's like somebody speaking broken English. And after it happens enough times, you get stronger. And then I do energy work. And I thought, well, if I could harness the energy work that I do when I'm awake and learn how to do it in dream state, I can do major damage before they can do damage to me. And that's what I ended up doing.
Wow.
So I don't get bothered in dream state much anymore. This was the UFO that my son-in-law took the photo of. It's actually a full video. If you'd like to see it, it's on World Bigfoot Radio. I'm sorry, Duke might be able to remember what episode it is. He can post it in chat. But it is on World Bigfoot Radio, and it's the full footage of it. And it was quite close to the house. We watched it from my front porch. My son-in-law was outside, and he noticed it first. And his wife went out there, and they called to Pat and I, and we went out there and we watched it as he was filming it. And at one point it separated, and out the back of it came a red UFO that looked more to be a triangular shape, not triangle, but almost like a sphere shaped.
You sent me a couple. I don't know if it's the same one with a different.
Chase that. Sorry, that's the dog.
Oh, that's okay.
All the other ones are out with Pat, and this one is trying to get everybody to play with them, and he's like, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another, that was part of it too. And that eventually turned into these red lights. Like they kept evolving. It was really crazy. But this is the second, that was an up close of what came out the back end of it. But at some point, the lights switched from the white to the red.
Yeah, I think there's another one here.
Yep, that was the first one. It was spinning all the multicolors. I will say this, my son-in-law did send it to MUFON, and MUFON did an investigation on it and then came back and said that it was a class 1 sighting in their opinion, and it was not terrestrial, so it was not from this earth.
Wow.
Yep.
Here's another one. It might be the same.
If that was the same one, it was just that one is a clearer picture as it was spinning. It was continually moving and changing colors, and it was unbelievable. I was in the house one day, and that one forest person that that you had up that was standing behind Igor, he was mind speaking with me, and he said, "Bring your camera and come outside." And I said, "Why? What's the matter?" And he said, "Take a picture, take a moving picture of the star that's not a star." And I said, "What?" And so I went out there and I said, "What do you want me to take a picture of?" And he said, "In the sky, the white light in the sky." And I said, "It's a star." He said, "It's not a star." So I videotaped it, and it was actually a UFO. And when I got it on video, it was like dancing all over the place in all these crazy patterns. And then at some point, it separated, and a long cylinder craft was present as well. That that is either a little person or an ET. I haven't decided which one yet. He was actually crouched down in the bushes. He's definitely humanoid, not big at all. So it is possible he was a little person, but he was right at the same time. We had a lot of UFOs the night before, and we get a lot of ETs over here. So that, I got pictures of one that was laying in bushes. I don't know if I sent that to you or not, but we've got that one, and we've had different situations with them here. Not all of them. I want to point out they're not all bad. There have been some ETs that have been very helpful and actually have saved our little planet's butt several times. And I was contacted by someone that I helped with that spent a lifetime with abductions, and we had got the abductions to stop, fortunately. And he contacted me one day and said it happened again. And I said, it's been 9 years. What are you talking about? And he said, no, these were different. These were good. But they said to give a message to the woman that I talked to about this. He said, you're the only one I've ever talked to about this. There's nobody else. So it's got to be for you. And basically, they wanted me to know how the bad ones take possession of people so that they could protect themselves. But, in order to do that, you've got to come forward with the information, and you've got to get people to believe it. And it's really, really difficult because people don't want to know. They say they do. They do. But it can be frightening because you're talking about something that we really can't control. Like, you can say you're big, bad, and tough, and you're going to do this, and you're going to stop this. It doesn't always work that way. And as much as we think we can control everything, there's always going to be something that's going to find a way around it eventually. I mean, I've had myself and some other people that I work with, because we do everything as a team, have had success with it. But, eventually there's going to be something that's going to get around it. I'm a firm believer of that, because none of us are invincible.
Exactly.
None of us can do it alone. It's got to be a team situation all the time, and if you try to do it as you're the Lone Ranger, it just doesn't work. The force people and all the cryptids, the one thing that we refuse to listen to and understand that they try to teach repeatedly is you work as a collective, you work together. And if you're not willing to work together, you fail. And if you look at our world right now, nobody's working together, and what's happening? We're failing.
Yeah, it's falling apart. I mean,
it is, because everybody has to be better than that other person, and that's just nonsense. I can have, and I'm just picking numbers. This isn't what I'm saying I've had, but let's say I had 1 million experiences. I don't mean any more than somebody that found a footprint in the middle of a back road, because that footprint is valuable information. We learn from each other. I don't know it all. I will never say I know it all. I'm not an expert. Never will I ever say I'm an expert. I personally do not believe there are experts. There are people that know a lot that can share knowledge, and I appreciate that, but we have to learn it from each other so we can all put the puzzle pieces together.
Right. I'm with you 100% there. There's too much conflict in this.
And there really doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinion, and it could be based on their own experiences, but there's no one. This is what I keep stressing to people. There's no one set way that any of this works. And it's not that I'm trying to avoid a concrete answer. I'm just being honest.
Right.
Because they're all individuals. They're all a type of a human hybrid, and they're all a type of a people, but they're all different individuals. And just like with us, every single person has a different personality, different likes, different dislikes, different mannerisms. They're not any different. They really aren't.
Right.
And you learn from being around them which ones you can do what with and what you can't, and what they're willing to tolerate and what they're not.
Yeah, I believe you there. There's just too much conflict. If everyone would get together, maybe we could find out more.
Yeah, it's sad because it stops everybody from learning. And, just to be clear, they're never going to tell us everything.
No.
It changes them being safe.
Yeah.
We're not going to get hold of China and tell them all of our secrets.
No. No. That's for sure.
I mean, then what would they need their balloons for? But I mean, we're not going to do that. So it's unrealistic to think, even though most of them are trying to befriend us, they're not going to tell us everything. If they told us all the goods, we'd take them out in a minute, or try to. We never could, but we would try to, because our people kill what they don't understand.
Exactly.
And it's absolutely horrific. There's so much
Yes.
they can teach us. There's so much we can learn, and yet we don't, because we would rather kill what we don't understand.
Exactly. Exactly.
But there are bad ones. I mean, people need to understand the good ones love on a deeper and a more emotional level than we do. The bad ones are lethal.
That's easy right
I
there.
will cry.
Time will cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Very true. She was very surprised because mine are very, very good and easy to get along with. And when she first got here, she kept saying, "They're not going to hurt me, right?" And I'm like, "No."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she enjoyed the interaction that she had because they were friendly. I don't tolerate the aggression here. I do a lot of energy work, and I work really hard to keep things calm. Doesn't mean that something bad won't try to wander in and get ran off.
Uh-huh.
But I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed because I have had the calmer ones here. Anything kind of, rough comes in the area and they get ran out pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. I just wondered. I mean, you hear that it was aggressive. You hear these growls and stuff that people have had, in their encounters. Is it just grumpy older males? I mean, just not wanting them people in his spot,
And
around his
I'm
life.
sorry you broke up.
Uh,
I,
do you think that a lot of people have these encounters, and they say they was like kind of mean towards people, the
it
growls and
depends. Yeah, it depends on the situation. What you have to kind of look at it on a deeper level.
mm-hmm,
Were you into too deep in their area? Because they have families and they have children. And
mm-hmm,
if you are sitting in your living room with your children or your grandchildren and you're playing with them and somebody kicks open your door and walks in unannounced, looks completely different than you do, there's nothing you wouldn't do to protect your child. And we cannot expect for less from them. It could be a matter of and this has happened multiple times. I've seen them run people off and people are like, "Oh, it was attacking me." And I'm like, "Did it hurt you? Did it physically touch you?" No. What did it do? Well, it yelled at me. Okay. A lot of
mm-hmm.
times, if there's danger, they will run us out to protect us. And
Yeah,
then you have some that are like, okay, you're in my home. You've really pushed the envelope. You've gotten closer than I'm now comfortable with. So I'm going to do this not to physically harm you or kill you, but so that you are fearful enough where you're going to leave my family alone. Or I'm hunting and you just ruined tonight's dinner. So there's a huge variety of things. When you get them that go like to the land between the lakes, perfect example. All the nasty, hateful ones, they all go there because they hate us. Our people have been bad to them and have tried to hurt them, and they don't want us around. So they go to an area that people aren't supposed to be in. And yet, because we are insistent that we're going to watch them anyway, we follow them to these areas. You're asking for trouble.
yeah,
And it's at that point you're not looking for a good experience that could keep encounters coming to you for your life. You don't care if it's good or bad. You want a bad one if it means you're going to get your money shot or you're going to get to see them. And that's how things spiral out of control, because when somebody gets killed, everybody goes and hunts for them, but yet we're the ones that went in these areas. We have murderers, we have pedophiles, we have rapists, and they do as well. They have psychopaths, they do. There's mental illness in them, just like with us. So they have the same conflict with problem individuals that we do. But then you see some that go way up in the mountains Well, we're not up in the mountains. So if they're going way up in the mountains, it's because they'd rather not be by us. And then we
Exactly.
follow them up there, you know, or they want to live away from the other clans and they don't want to be down by us and have to deal with us. But yet we chase after them. And so that's where a lot of your conflicts come from. Brian, you're absolutely right. I mind spoke with several of the Bigfoot over there and the dogmen, obviously not all of them. And a lot of them, it seems, have been kicked out of the clans, kicked out of the packs, and are not wanted. And they get resentful, they get bitter, they get angry. And unfortunately, they all will pile there and they form this huge mass, which is really dangerous for everybody. It's certainly not an excuse for their behavior, but that's what they're doing. And they just all, it's like a gang. You know, if you go to some of these inner cities that have gangs that are violent and dangerous, they feel they've been wronged by the world. They're going to take it out on the world. And that's kind of what LBL is.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, because they say that, I've heard some pretty bad stories from down there at
Yeah.
LBL.
And most of them are true.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy place. So you think that's where they send the, the bad
And
ones
not
that's been
all of
kicked?
them. I mean, I know of certain individuals that have been cast off and they just live off by themselves because they're not allowed, you know, they're not allowed to be with any other clans. No clan will take them. But the thing about LBL is that's mostly what's there.
Wow. So that's where all that comes from down there. It's just
Yeah,
the bad ones.
exactly. It is. And, I get people are curious, but the old saying, curiosity killed the cat, is legit.
Right.
You can get contact. It's all up to them. Like to think that we're in control of anything is just a joke. But if you're going to strive for contact, you want it the right way. You want it on respect. You want it where if you're going to have an encounter, it's peaceful and it can continue throughout your life to have more encounters. You don't want negative, you want positive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're at
I
the
mean,
top of that.
go ahead.
We're at the top of the hour. You want to take a break for a couple minutes?
Sure. Take a
Okay.
5-minute break and I will be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. We'll be right
Sounds
back.
good.
We'll be right back. All we'll be right back.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Let me just turn it down for a sec. Taking a 5-minute break, but she's actually pretty bad.
Huh? Ketchup. No! Give me the ketchup. Come on. Get it yourself.
Hey, we're back now.
Ketchup.
I saw
Can you hear?
Darkwood's comment. He said you don't see Sasquatch on meth. Some humans have fallen on fire. That's true, but I tell you what, they do find different ways. Like, I don't know about everybody's, but the ones I've seen, they are the biggest alcoholics ever. If they can get booze, they love it. And they
Really?
know what the marijuana leaves, they'll chomp on them. I mean, they know what makes them feel good.
Oh my
But you
gosh!
don't
I
see it,
didn't.
not that I know of. I've never heard of any on meth. I don't think they do it a lot by any means, but I've heard of different people that have made comments to me that, they've seen them, chewing on marijuana leaves. And I know Igor one time, him and I put out a bottle of beer and it had a screw top on it. And they unscrewed it and they dropped the top and they went to drink it and they didn't like it. And so they put it back. So we went out there and Igor said, well, I'm going to go get the bottle cap in case there's any DNA on it. I said, okay. We walked back out and the bottle cap was gone. So they got rid of that real quick. But I lived in a very small town, and about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from me was this little tiny, tiny pub. And they would go down there in the trash cans and get the booze bottles. And I'm not a drinker, never have been. And I would get up the next day, and by the feeding area would just be ungodly amounts of booze bottles. It's like you would have thought I had Guns N' Roses there partying all night long.
Oh my
Just, oh, it was awful.
gosh! Oh my gosh! They must really like to prank you a lot, don't they?
They do, yes. Oh my gosh. They went, and I've talked about this before, so I apologize to anybody that's already heard it. In my garage when I was in Michigan, my daughter-in-law had brought over a bag of clothes that belonged to her son when he was like a year old. And they were sitting in there next to our toolbox. And they got in the toolbox. I know it was them. There were muddy footprints all over the cement in the garage. And a lot of the, not power tool stuff, but like wrenches and screwdrivers and hammers and that kind of thing, they were gone. Like they were flat out gone. Like we thought we had been robbed. But then this bag of baby clothes was gone. And we later found the bag of baby clothes out in the woods, ripped open, and all the clothing was gone except for 2 pieces.
Oh wow!
I don't know what they ever did with it. I couldn't even tell you because I'm sure it wouldn't fit their children, but they had it. And then like a year later, I was at home and I heard a noise on my side of my porch. And I went out there and all of these little tools, screwdrivers and wrenches and ratchets and stuff were all lined up. And I have pictures of it lined up on my deck railing, completely rusted, totally rusted. You can tell they'd been outside. I don't know what in the world they were doing with them, but they had them. And they had taken a basketball and a football. And the basketball they got out of the garage, they went like this, like it was an apple. And you could see where they bit down on it and bit the basketball like an apple.
Oh my
And
gosh!
the football, when we found it, it looked like somebody had put the football in their hand and just squeezed it till it popped. Like the strength that it must have taken to do that was unbelievable.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, the stuff they did.
Yeah. I mean, they used to play all kinds of pranks. They thought everything was funny, and I was out in the yard one day and the neighbor behind me had a cattle farm. And whenever her dad would do the hay fields, the black racers and the blue racer snakes would come right up over the tire and strike at him going through the field. And so I'm not afraid of snakes. Venomous snakes, I'm terrified of. But I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to get bit by one of these racers. So I asked them, I said, will you keep the snakes away, please? I've got children. I don't want anybody getting bit. And like the next day, they brought me the body of a blue racer and they had literally bitten the head off of it. It was shaped like a human mouth, where they just went up and went and bit it right off. And there
Oh
was a
my
bloody
god!
rock. Yeah, there's a bloody rock sitting next to it. So they must have beaten it in the head with a rock and then bit the head off.
Wow! Wow!
But they used to bring me dead rabbits. I was putting food out for them and their thought process was I gave food to them, so they gave food to me. Excuse me. And it was like this exchange program, and I had this one cage, it was like a rabbit hutch, there's only one way in. And not only would I put food in it and put the lock on it, I had snaps that went all the way around the door so that it couldn't even get open. Your field mouse couldn't have gotten in. It was so tightly snapped shut. And I would get up in the morning, and not only was the food gone, but the plate the food was on, and then the snaps had been taken off and put back on in different places. Hi,
That's
Patty.
great.
I'm good, sweetheart. It's 80 degrees here. She's like, how's the weather? It was 78 degrees here today. It's insane. I'm ready to go back to Michigan where it's cooler.
Yeah, no, it was 73 here yesterday.
Yeah, like what is the deal?
Like,
None of them know none of the cryptids know what to do. The weather's just craziness. Everything's off kilter.
I mean, I don't like the cold, but I like to see it get cold for a little while.
Yeah, I'm really between 60 and 75 is my happy place.
Yeah.
You know, I can be outside, I can do what I want to do, I can have all my windows open and be comfortable and air out my house because I like the fresh breeze coming in. So it's nice. Hi, Rob. Rob is the doll. I was talking about your show earlier, sweetie.
BMR.
But yeah. And so yeah, it'll be nice getting back to Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you a few things here.
Sure.
Do you think like a lot of us that hunt have been around Bigfoot, we just don't know it?
Oh yeah. They like to there's a couple things that they've told me about the hunters. You know, obviously they're afraid of them because of weapons. Yeah. And when I was in Michigan and they would bow hunt, they would find all these arrows from the hunters. And I would get up in the morning and go on my porch and I'd find stacks of them, like 15, 20 arrows sitting on my front porch because they would confiscate all of these arrows and they wouldn't give them back to the hunters. So they would bring them to my house. But all my kids hunted, whether it be bow or rifle, you know, and there was never a problem, but I would always make sure when I went into the wood or when the kids did, I never hunted. I don't have the stomach for it. But there was a lot of respect there. Like when they would go on our property to hunt, I would go out there and I'd say, okay, you guys, they're going to be hunting in this area. Go to the front of the woods. You know, they know not to hunt up there. And that would work. But they do follow the hunters because if they get a deer, if the hunters get a deer and the cryptids, whether it's a dogman or a Bigfoot or a goatman or any of them, if they can get to that kill before we do, it's gone. It's absolutely gone. And I know several people that have had that experience. A real good friend of mine, in fact, that I met him right afterwards, he and a relative were out hunting on his land. They shot a deer. They followed the blood trail, and then it disappeared. And they heard this like a growling noise. They looked up and here's this Bigfoot with the deer over its shoulder. And it never tried to hurt my friend or the relative. It just simply looked at him and turned around and walked off with a deer. You know, but that's an easy meal for them. They used to, my kids would in Michigan, you put bait piles out and my kids would have a tree stand, or not a tree stand, but the tent, the camouflage tents. And my one son would have it. He would be so mad every morning. He'd go out there and they would just destroy that tent every single time. It was during bow season. You know, it was a tent for him to sit with his bow and arrow. They would watch the bait piles. And then one day I went out there and the bait was all gone. And all you found was a pile of white hair from the belly of a deer. So they must have pegged one of the deer while it was at the bait pile during the night. And then they took all the bait anyway. And then another time we had somebody, we didn't know he was going to come out on the property. And he went out to hunt. He knew he could, but we didn't know he was coming out. We weren't at home. And we pulled in the driveway and he come out to the car and he's like, why didn't you tell me you hired somebody in a white gorilla suit to walk around the property? The thing scared me half to death. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what we do. When we're not home, we hire people in white gorilla suits to patrol the property. You know, I mean, this is the stupidity of it. But they will, and it's an easy meal for them. But then again, you're talking about, they know we have a weapon. They have family units. So even if they're not trying to take whatever the hunters get, they're going to keep a close eye on you to make sure you aren't going to do anything that's going to be dangerous to the clan or the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I just always wondered. I
Mhm.
stayed in the woods when I was younger. You couldn't
Yeah,
get me out of the woods.
I know. But they can imitate your voice. And we had a situation where my ex-husband was out in the woods and I was in the house. We were still married at the time. And he came in all mad and he said, that was really crappy. You going out in the woods and talking when you know I'm out there deer hunting. And I said, I haven't left the house. And the kids are like, no, Dad, Mom's right here. She hasn't gone anywhere. Well, I know her voice. I've known her for 15 years. I know what her voice sounds like. She was out in the woods. And I said, but I never went in the woods. Their capabilities to mimic go so far beyond our capabilities. It's uncanny. And so it was right after that I put the law down to the kids that said, if you hear me call you and you're outside and I want you to go, anywhere other than the house, if you don't physically see me, you don't respond. You simply don't respond. You're not going to get grounded. You're not going to be in trouble because they've now, they can imitate my voice. They can imitate anybody's voice. So if somebody calls you and says, hey, come out here, go do this or whatever, if you don't physically see them, you don't go.
Yeah.
It's just they're too on spot with the vocals they make.
Wow. That's amazing.
And they do that here. Pat's been out in the backyard mowing the lawn or whatever and even if they're not mimicking somebody, he'll be out mowing the lawn and they'll call his name and he's turning around and looking for him, or they'll do that to me. I went out to bring the Pyrenees in one night and there was an older male that was back there and he was standing just outside the fencing in the brush and he was coughing and wheezing. And, I asked him if he needed healing because I know how to do healing on him. And he said, no, he was just old. He was fine, that he always sounded like that. I said, okay. The noises they make is just unbelievable.
Well, I know one time up at the farm, we was having trouble with coyotes up there, and
Yeah.
I can get them stirred up pretty good to where they'll start howling. Well, Dad and his friend, I got them stirred up, and I kept them stirred up until Dad and him was right there, and they said they could not see anything.
Yeah.
In the woods, they could not see a coyote nowhere, and
no, they make the coyote sounds, and you can't tell the difference. You really can't. It's like I don't do the whoop calls. I've done them 2 or 3 times just because I always wondered if I could do them. Okay, and I don't sound all that great, just to be honest with you, but I've done them. I don't recommend them because we don't know what they're trying to say. For all we know, we could be calling them a filthy name,
Right.
Hey, I want to go out on a date. You don't know. So I just, as a rule, I just simply don't do it. I mean, I know a lot of people do, and I'm not knocking anybody that does. I think everybody has their own way of doing things, but I just, as a rule, I don't. If they sound off something to me, then I, try to say something back, but I'm really careful about trying to do any of the calls just because without knowing the exact meaning, you don't know if you're, being antagonistic. Are you being nice? You just don't know. Too many variables.
Now, is it safe to do wood knocks or no? To stay away from
I've never had a problem with the wood knocks, but again, it goes to the same thing as the vocals. We don't really know what we're saying.
Yeah.
My daughter did wood knocks with one time. She was just a kid, and it was probably like 6 feet into this clump of bushes from where she was, and it would knock at her, and she'd wood knock back, and she did that for like 10, 15 minutes. And we get them that come up to the house and we'll wood knock. And, that's fine. I don't do a lot of them. I did one night, I was on Dave Scott's Spaced Out Radio show. Duke and I were both on it together, and they had taken a break. And during this break, they were over in the side bushes and the trees in the front yard. I was sitting out on my porch, and it was dark out, and it sounded like they were pinging on a piece of metal, and I didn't know what they were doing. But it was a pattern. It was 1 ping, wait 5 seconds, 1 ping, wait 5 seconds. And they did this a number of times. So when Dave called for the break, I thought, I'm going to see what this is. I stayed on the porch, but I did a wood knock of 4 knocks. And as soon as I did that, they stopped doing that ping pattern, and they did the ping, but they did it the same 4 knocks that I did. And then they went back to their 1, wait 5 seconds, do it again, 1, 5, 1 second. And so I did it 3 times, and they went and did it 3 times. So it was very clear that they were, imitating it.
Yeah.
Gene, as far as I know, yeah, I haven't heard anything different. Generally, if things get too bad anywhere, they will either go underground or they'll get holed up somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen that on there. I was like, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's I guess it's pretty nasty up there with that, with that
Yeah.
train wreck.
Yeah, so far I haven't heard of anything at all. None of them have contacted me. If anybody was, and I mean, if anybody was hurt or anything, I haven't heard anything from them on that at all.
Yeah. Go home, Mother Nature. You're drunk. I believe it is. Because here in West Virginia, it's just been way too warm this winter. We had like 1 week of very cold weather, and that was it.
Yeah, I think we've messed too much with our planet. We've screwed everything up, and this is just my opinion, for whatever it's worth. I think that we've screwed things up so badly, and it's really sad because it doesn't just affect us.
No.
Hey, Rob.
It affects everything.
It doesn't just affect us. It affects everything on the planet, whether we want to share this planet or not. They're here, and they have every bit of the right to it as we do, as far as I'm concerned.
Primal Costas, she's got a bonfire waiting for you.
I can't wait. As soon as I can, I'm going to go visit her and Darkwoods. I absolutely adore those two. They've got
they got
some wonderful interaction there. Primal Cry, she's due for the baby in 2 weeks. So you should have a little one there between 2 to 3 weeks, I think it is. She said the other day, because I checked on her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know what? They've got both the Dogman and the Bigfoot there, and they've got a really good relationship. Like, they've worked really hard, I think, to establish that relationship, and it seems to be pretty good. And it doesn't mean when you have a great relationship with them, it doesn't mean that, you're not going to get a jerk in the group. Everybody has them, but they've got a good relationship. Yeah, I just love them. I tell you what, I've met some really good people in this industry, and I've been very blessed because for all the people that aren't maybe as kind as I would love to see them be, for every one of those people, I've met probably 20 that I think are just the dearest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, I mean, since I started in this, and I've only, looks like I got 12 shows on now.
Yeah.
And the people are so nice. Most of them are so nice.
Yeah. In regards to what, is it Ava or Avi? Avi May?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. That is something that they do very much appreciate. When it comes to the children, they love harder and are more protective than we would ever dream to imagine. So whenever you're able to do something like that, that pulls huge amounts of weight for them. And I've actually had a female that used to go and take branches off trees, and after the kids would walk down a certain path or whatever, I would catch her taking the tree branch behind it like a broom and sweeping away tracks. So yes, that is something that they do very much appreciate. They say that makes you a true friend.
How small? What's the smallest track you've ever seen?
I have a cast of a 9-inch track. The smallest track I've seen has been like anywhere between maybe 5 inches. I saw one that was a little bit tinier, but I'm not real sure what that was. But the smallest I've seen is a 5-inch.
Yeah, that's pretty small too.
The smallest cast I've done is 9.
Yeah, I just wonder how big the babies are when they're born. I'm sure they're probably the size of a.
They're bigger than our babies. I would say 24 inches. I mean, and that's just a guess. I mean, I'm not the gospel by any means.
I know what you're saying.
The one that brought the smallest baby to me, because they brought me babies to see play and stuff, and that one, he was a little cutie. Oh my God, he was adorable. A little chocolate covered little boy, and he was just a hoot and a half. And she brought him to let me see him. She let me get within 50 feet of her, which I thought was really kind. And he would run like 3 foot up the base of a tree, and then he'd get tired and he'd run back down. So he'd run to the next tree and he'd go up 3 foot and he'd run back down. And at first I wasn't really sure what was going on until I finally got a better look at him. And he did this in a spot that was about 9 foot in length. He went tree to tree to tree, and he never made it up farther up than 3 foot before he'd go back down. And pretty soon he got tired, and the mom picked him up and held him to her chest, and he kind of looked over at me like this and then laid his head down on his chest.
Oh, I bet that was cute.
Oh, it was adorable. Just absolutely adorable. But the babies used to come in and they would get some of the food and stuff. And the one day I walked out there and I was in my truck, and the driveway was on the opposite end. And I went around the house. I thought it would be more convenient to pull on the other end of the house instead of in the driveway to unload groceries, because it was closer to the kitchen. And I drove around and I didn't know the kids were out there eating. And I'd put bagels out there. And one of the kids looked at me. He stood up, kind of looked at me, cocked his head, and threw the bagel at my truck and bounced it off the front of the truck. I was like, all right, then. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. They're a hoot.
Oh, it sounds like it. Oh, wow. Oh, thinking here. I wrote a few things down.
Oh, you're all right. You're fine.
Oh, I've heard you talk about them building the fire.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, for the simple fact that, at one time, them and the Native Americans was kind of tight,
Oh, yeah.
And they watch, I'm sure they watched everything they did.
Yeah,
I mean,
they'll use the rocks, clacking the rocks together to start it. Very similar to what we do. At one time I saw in this, I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I saw them use almost like they created an energy ball and just threw it on the wood, and it just whoosh, and there was fire. We had a slab of cement that was part of an old lean-to behind our house. And we took the lean-to down and the cement slab was still there. And so we had a bonfire. My son was in the military at the time, and he was out on leave, and him and his family were there. And my other son was there with his family, and we had this huge bonfire, and it was great. About 10 o'clock, we stopped the bonfire and everything got put out. And I was always afraid the woods would get caught on fire. So we cleaned it all up. Like we had, waited till all the ashes were pulled down. We hosed them down. We swept it all up, put it in a burn barrel so that it couldn't, spark or do anything.
yeah.
That slab had nothing on it. And my son was in the house, and about an hour and a half later, he said, "Hey, Mom, why didn't you tell me you wanted another fire? You didn't have to start it. I would have done it for you. You have to log all the wood and everything over there." I said, "What are you talking about? I didn't start a fire." Went out there, and there's wood back on this slab, and there's a fire going. And there's foot standing in the woods, and they're just laughing. I mean, that's all they're doing is laughing. And so we went out, and we had left like marshmallows out there and sodas out there. And I thought, well, if they want them, they can have them. I was too tired to go out and get them. And they devoured every single one of them. And the pop cans, it was like somebody just grabbed it like this and squeezed. And so they were just totally demolished. There's nothing left of them. But they use older pieces of wood and certain trees that will smoke less, so that way it's not noticeable. And there's some that prefer to cook food over it. They'll use like the white spruce and make a tea. They'll make tea out of lavender. They'll make all kinds of things out of it. The females will like to take the flower blossoms in the hot water and make a scent to it and then pour it on themselves. And the dogmen can imitate crying babies. The Bigfoot can too, but the dogmen can as well. Yeah, dogmen are no slouch as far as imitating things.
So they can do pretty much everything, vocal-wise.
Yeah, I think, a lot of these cryptids can do pretty much the same thing. Some have more abilities than other. I think I've noticed more with the Bigfoot, but the dogmen and the rest of them, I believe, can do the same thing.
Yeah. Primal car, I said they've never heard that there.
But again, every group is different.
Mhm.
please, no matter what you do, don't assume that because one group does it, all of them do that, or that they're all going to do it, because they just don't.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, like you say, they're interdimensional beings.
They're multidimensional. They can travel through portals, they can go through dimensions, they can do all these things, and they can just as much be in a physical form as they can be in a spirit form. Like, I've literally been in homes, and I know other people have experienced this as well, because I've talked to multiple people, and I'm sure there's probably millions I haven't talked to that have had that experience, where you see one walk right through a wall in a shadow form. Yeah, they have infrasound, they use that as well. All of the cryptids do. They raise their energy level and their vibrational level, and it creates that they have a natural infrasound, what we consider infrasound, around them. It's just like an energy wall.
Now, is that what makes some people sick? The
Yeah, what they can do is they can take that energy and that infrasound, and they can zap you with it. If you're doing something that is concerning for them, or they feel that you're not a good person, they can do it as soft or as hard as they want. They can do it hard enough to stop your heart. They can do it soft enough to make you dizzy, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
It just depends on the individual, and it doesn't matter. It's not like they do it and it affects the whole group. If they want the whole group, it can. But they also, hi, beautiful girl.
That's Mila, my little one.
She's beautiful. But they also can pinpoint to exactly who they want it to be. I've been with people that have got zapped and dropped on the ground.
Wow.
And yet I haven't gotten it. That doesn't mean I won't at some point. I'm not immune to it, but I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah. That's crazy. And I've heard a lot of people say that they've gotten sick and dizzy and nauseous.
Yep. Yeah, I know people that, they've knocked them right out. I had a friend that was with me, and they wanted me to do a blessing on some babies that were in this big bush, and they knew my friend was with me. She was out in the woods with you got it, Jean. She was out in the woods with me all the time. And so I walked towards the bush to do this blessing on the babies. Next thing I know, she's on the ground in pain, grabbing her head, going, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. My head, my head. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they said, we don't want her this close to the babies. And I said, well, then say something. Like, you don't have to, drop her to the ground.
Right.
And so they let up right away, and she backed off. And then I had another friend that we were getting ready to enter the woods, and they did the same thing to him, and he was like inches from me, but they didn't with me. And it's not anything to do with a superpower or anything. They just chose not to. So do I think at some point I'll get nailed? Probably. So if I knock on wood every time I say that, because so far no, but it doesn't mean it won't happen or it can't happen. It just means that they've chosen not to at this point.
I was hunting up on Cheat Mountain down here in Randolph County, and we went back. I walked about a mile back in there, and I got that feeling like I need to get out of here. Like the hair still on the back of my neck, the goosebumps. Just something told me, get out of here.
Yeah, they can project emotion onto you, so that you know what they want you to know. If they don't want you around, they will project that fear emotion on you. They can project any emotion they want. If they want you to feel welcome, they can give you this feeling of love, of comfort, of peace, whatever. But they can just as easily make you feel uncomfortable. If they aren't trying to like hurt you and they're not being hateful and they just want to make you feel a little off, they can do that. They can terrify you, or they can, if you're too close to family or what they're doing, or even to them personally, they can make you feel that dread to make you want to leave.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just hit me all at once. I was like, I left. I was like, I don't want no part of this, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, and they didn't do anything to you because you got the message and you left.
Yeah, I left immediately. Yeah, I was reading there. Darkwood said the weather's messed up because the core of the Earth is slowing down.
Well, we've just destroyed everything, you know,
Yeah.
and the whole Earth is all these giant tubes that go through it. And you got various cryptids in there and various ETs in there, and then we've damaged the planet, and it's just like this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a messed up year this year, I tell you. The
Yeah,
weather's
it's
all
getting
messed
worse,
up.
you
Yeah.
know. And with all the nuclear weapons we've got built up, we better hope that the ETs are going to be able to do what they tell us they can do, because that might be the only thing that stops it. They've stopped it before, you know, and they interfered to a certain degree when they used CERN the last time. So
Yeah, that's something that's messed up right there. They're playing with stuff they have no idea, I think.
no, and you know, there was an ET last night that for whatever reason I had contacted myself and some other people I was talking to, and what he told me was, you know, CERN. We was talking about the concern of CERN, and he said that, you know, it messes up the atmosphere, not just ours but theirs. And I got to thinking about it, and you know, I don't. The powers that be, I just don't think care. But the reality of it is, everything is set up in a balanced system. So we screw up everything in space, it affects us here on Earth. It's not just going to affect us. We screw up this planet, it affects the other planets. It's all like a cosmic balance thing of how everything is supposed to be. And for whatever reason, we just keep thinking we can play God and do whatever we want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
D-Day is going to hit. You know, enough, the Earth is going to fight back. It's a living, breathing thing. It's an energy being, and it's going to fight back, and it is. And unfortunately, we have nobody to blame but ourselves. Maybe not us, not
Yeah.
each individually, you know, as a person, but as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to happen. Something's got to break, you know.
I know, and it's really sad because the cryptids really try to protect the Earth and work with the Earth, and you know, the energy in it, and everything feeds off the energy. Our Earth is the biggest energizer battery that there is, and all these other beings are trying to protect it and save it, and we think we're superior and we're killing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we always have to, and when I say we, I don't mean anybody individually. I'm talking about, you know, the masses and the powers of be of our
Yeah.
people. And you know, we're going to do things our way. Well, our way doesn't work.
No, it
It just
doesn't.
simply does not work,
No, that's for sure.
and we refuse to learn.
Oh, I know the one I like to hear you tell again is the Texas story with you and the kids that was in the tree
Oh
stand.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that was a crazy story.
That was insanity. Um,
Yes.
if the kids weren't involved, I probably would not have been as brave as I was. What had happened was, I had a very dear friend who's now passed away, and hi, Georgian. He is such a sweet man. Um, and he had asked me to come to Texas. He was setting up a research area, and this particular research area was owned by a friend of his. And my understanding, it was like hundreds of acres that butted up to a national wildlife refuge. And at one point, there were 2 or 3 houses on the property that had been abandoned. And the people that bought it, they bought the land sight unseen. I don't know if it was through a bank auction or how they obtained it, but they didn't live there. They just had it. And they had a couple old horses that they let run loose there to just live out their days. And my friend had asked them, could he go back there and look for the Sasquatch? And she said, oh, sure, no problem. So she gave him a key to the gate to get in. And he had been back there several times. And he said, you know, they had this big berry patch, and he'd go back there and see all these footprints and all these things. And he was trying to interact with them. And so he wanted me to go out there and see if I could get a feel of it. And I'd already been talking to him, and I didn't pick up they were the nicest group to begin with, but he was insistent. I go to
Mm-hmm.
Texas, and because not only was I going to see him, I had 2 very dear friends that lived in Texas that I wanted to see. So we go out in this research area, And the place he had been putting food out, I went there first, and that felt calm. It didn't have any really bad energy, but I could feel there was a lot of dark things that were nearby. And he said, I'm going to take you over by the berry bushes. And I said, okay. So he drives and now we're way back almost to the wildlife refuge. And he pulls into this area that is horseshoe shaped. So you can pull in, but there's nowhere to pull out except to back up. And there were foots everywhere. And we knew they were there. They had made noises. And his grandchildren were with us, and they were little. I mean, I think the youngest one there was maybe 6, and the oldest one could have been 9 or 10. There's 3 of them. And so we had these kids. He pulls into this area and he stops his truck. He parks it. He gets out. The kids get out. They ran down this alcove and they went up this tree stand. And when they went up the tree stand, they're looking around, which that gave me a heart attack because as a mom, you don't want to see your kids run up in a tree stand. But right. So I see these little kids go up there and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to fall. But anyway, I look down on the ground and there's literally bones everywhere. And when we first got on this property, I noticed there were the 2 houses. He said there was a 3rd house. I don't recall seeing the 3rd one, but there was 2 houses there. And it literally looked like these people left in the middle of the night. Like when you leave, if you're going to abandon a house, as a parent, you may leave your belongings. You don't leave your kids' stuff. You don't leave expensive toys and bikes, and you don't leave antiques that are worth a lot of money or cars that are collecting, like a collectible car that would be worth $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. You're not going to leave these things.
No, that's for sure. So
when we went in there, it literally, all the windows were bashed out. The doors were kicked open. And there was a goat skull laying on the front porch, and there were no goats anywhere in this place. And I'm like, we drove past that to get to these other areas, I could feel this real aggression. And I'm like, this is not good. So he stopped. We got out, walked around real quickly, and something threw a blueberry at me. But it wasn't aggression. It was just like a toss, like, hey, we're over here. So now we're drive over there, and the kids go up the tree stand. I look on the ground, and there's all these animal bones. And I'm looking like, oh, my God, this is their dinner table. They call it a killing field. They take the food, they go to a certain area, they eat, the bones are there, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I looked at my friend, and I said, oh, my God. And there were all these old deer corn feeders for hunters that they would use. Those things are expensive. Nobody in their right mind is going to take off and leave these things there.
No, they're expensive. Yeah,
they're very much so. And these were huge corn feeders that they probably used for cattle that might have been on that land at one time. And I'm like, what have you done? And he said, well, nothing. This is where the berry bushes are at. I said, we got to get out of here. We're the kids. He said, what is wrong with you? It's fine. We come back here all the time. I said, you not see these dead bones, all these bones from things. And he said, well, yeah, so what? I said, this is a killing field. This is where they eat. You just brought your grandchildren to their dining room table.
Oh my God.
And the kids are up in this tree stand, and you can hear all these foots coming in from all 3 sides. And you can tell they're massive, and you can see the bushes moving, and they're coming in, and the kids are now getting a topside view. So they're looking down as these things are coming through the brush. And I'm like, we got to get the kids down there. So right as I say that, I hear this voice in my head say, the kids will stay, you will leave. And I said, I'm not leaving the kids. He says, you will leave the kids or you will die. I said, you can try. And I'm trying to, be just as tough as he is. He could have snapped me and killed me in a heartbeat. But I'm not going to leave these kids. And so I'm like trying to call his bluff. So what I did, which I don't advise, I was stupid. Okay. My only concern was I'm a mom. Okay. When I see a child, doesn't matter whose kid they are, that becomes my focus and priority. Right. And all I could think of was putting myself between these children and this foot. And I'm thinking, if nothing else, will be on me and the kids can get out of there. So I walked past the tree the kids were in, and I walked towards them, which did not make him happy at all. And he's going, I will kill you. And I'm going, you can try. I have permission to be here. I was told I could walk here. I have not been told I can't be here. I'm not leaving. You're not getting these kids. And he kept going on about he was going to keep the kids. He was going to keep the kids. Now, my friend is now listening to all this movement coming in and just like from all sides. and the kids are freaking out. And he's going, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, I want you to go walk back up, go to the truck, get the doors open. And he said, well, come on, we got to get the kids. We got to get the kids. And I said, just do it. So he goes back towards the truck, and I'm trying to coax the kids down. You know, the kids are now terrified. And I'm like, oh, you guys, everything's great. They're just playing games with us. Why don't you come down? You know, your grandpa and I are going to take you to go get ice cream. It's going to be great. So they get halfway down this tree stand, and the thing bluff charges me.
Oh, no.
And he started out in physical form, went to cloak. Thank God the kids would have never come down. But I was standing next to a palmetto bush, and the palmetto bush came up between my hip and my breast. So it was a good sized bush, and it was quite full around. He leveled it. Like, he hit so close. It leveled that brush to the ground, blew my hair like the wind caught it way back like this. And you could feel the ground shake. The kids, there's no way they could miss it. My friend is like about ready to have a stroke. So the kids come halfway down the tree. This happens, and they go right back up the tree. But I never moved. I don't know why I didn't move, other than I was so focused on these kids. If it would, the kids wouldn't have been there, it probably would have been different. I would have wet myself. But my focus was these kids. So when he plowed through the bush, he ran sideways off into the brush again and said, you know, next time I won't miss. You know, next time I will take you and kill you. And the kids are like, oh my gosh, and they're crying. I'm like, oh no, he was just playing. And I found this little branch thing on the ground. I'm like, look at, he just tossed it over here and it knocked the bush down. It's fine. And the kids are acting like, you know, she's lost her mind. I'm like, so let's just go down, and we're going to go get ice cream. So the kids come down, and they just hauled butt to the truck. So now my friend's going, come on, come on, come on. And I'm like, I'm not budging until those kids are in the truck. I said, get them in the truck, shut their door, leave my door open, and start the truck, because they can be on top of you in a moment.
Yeah.
So he got the kids in there, left my door open, he started the truck, and I just backed up. I didn't turn around at all. I backed into the truck. I jumped in, slammed the door, and said, get us the hell out of here. He took off, and the thing came up and just whacked the back of his truck. I mean, the back end of the truck went off sideways a little bit, and he just drove like a bat out of hell towards the front of the property.
Oh, my gosh.
That same one he had taken several weeks later, after he had promised me he would never again go back in that area. He didn't, that I know of, but he took his girlfriend out there so that they were going to camp. And she didn't really want to camp, but he brought stuff to camp should she want to. And he went to the area, he put food out, which, you know, you don't camp where you put the food out. Not a bright idea.
Yeah.
And they were out there, and that same individual came looking for him up towards the front of the property. And he called me, and he was absolutely terrified. And he's like, tell me what's going on. And I'm like, okay, I do remote viewing. And I'm like, okay, you've got this one coming at you this way. You got one over here. You need to get in the truck. So they got up to try to get in the truck. And as soon as they did, something whacked the side of the truck. So they sat back down. They were afraid to get in the truck. So he eventually did make it into the truck with his girlfriend, and the thing went right into the back of the truck, and, you know, absolutely terrified him. And that was the last he ever went out.
Wow. That had to be a scary encounter there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They just, you know, that group, my firm belief, and no way to prove it, of course, but my firm belief is that the ones in that area, they had that natural refuge that's protected. Nobody could go on it. It was just theirs to run, and this property backed up to it. And these people built these homes in it and encroached in what they considered their territory. And
Yeah.
I personally believe they ran these people out. There's no way what I saw there, nobody would have left there. You don't leave cars from the 1960s.
No.
You know what I mean? You're not
No.
going to leave antiques there. And these antiques had been tossed out the window into the yard. Like, that's not going to happen.
No.
And trampolines from the kids, expensive bikes from the kids, gas grills, four-wheelers, you know, kids swing sets. You're not going to leave those things.
They left
And
in
this
a
was
hurry.
at both of the houses. It wasn't just one. And I don't know where the third one was. I only saw the two that I can remember.
Wow.
But they didn't even come back for all their vehicles.
That's
There was an old
crazy.
pickup truck there. You know, so something got them out of there and they weren't brave enough to come back. The horse seems, you know, there was 2 horses. I never saw the second one. I saw the one. He seemed to be quite comfortable. Like they weren't bothering him, but he had braids in his mane, you know, so they were
Yeah,
braiding the mane.
that's
And what was
crazy.
I felt was really odd is these people had planted a garden right behind their house. And they had been the people that owned the place, not the ones that left in the middle of the night, but the ones that had purchased it, had had that property for, I don't know, 5, 6 years. And they had done nothing with it. They didn't go out there and plant anything. They said, we just have the land. It was a tax write-off. It's beautiful. It was a place to let the horses on. But the garden behind the house had no weeds in it, was still growing produce in it, had footprints all around it, and was growing beautifully. That's not going to happen if it wasn't tended to.
No, do
And
you
I
think
do
they're
know,
Bigfoot?
yeah, I do know they will grow things. They are more than capable of growing things.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's a question from That's Fresh. It's a question for Robin.
They will go into underground tunnels. They will go into caves. They have where they actually will live at, whether it's a nesting area. A lot of people see that all these teepees around, those are not permanent structures that they live in. Those may be a temporary structure that they'll, you know, take a rest in during the day or use it as a blind, you know, to wait for prey to come by to grab it. I've seen teepees that they put on my property, not in South Carolina, but in Michigan, that were actually portals that they would go into. But they do, I was taken back in the early 90s to an area that they actually lived. They took me back there. And the only way I could get through it, it was impenetrable. You could not get through the brush to get in there. And they just kept telling me to put my hand on the bush, put my hand on the bush. So I did put my hand on the bush, and all I saw were like these gray speckly things. And all of a sudden I was in a different area. I didn't even know how I got in there. And I saw what they actually sleep in when they construct them. And I've never in my lifetime seen it like that before. It was the size of at least a 2-car garage, 4 foot off the ground with nothing but brush underneath of it, branches, trees, whatever that were made like interlocking like this. It was 100% waterproof because it was raining like crazy outside, not one drop of water in there. And it was where like a giant bed. It reminded me of Big Bird's Nest with a top.
Wow.
And they were there. They were not in it. I turned around and they were standing there. There was a male, a female, and a little girl. And they did not harm me in any way, shape, or form. The only way I was able to get back out of it, they told me to put my hand on the brush, and I did, and I was back outside. So, but there is a lot of things. They will use abandoned farmhouses, abandoned barns to sleep in. They're really pretty crafty. Anything they can find, you know, that they can use, they will.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise me. They do what they call counting coup. So they will actually come right up on top of you, cloaked, and you won't be able to see them in any way, shape, or form. If you know how to read energy, you can feel them. But unless you know what you're looking for, you might not, other than it feels a little funny. And they will come up, they'll actually touch you, whisper in your ear, you know, do a variety of things, not necessarily aggressive. You know, they've come up to Pat and I and whispered in our ear before. There's one that likes to come in and play with Pat's toe. Like he'll be laying on the bed trying to sleep and it'll wiggle his toe. You know, they used to, when I go out in the woods, they'll come up and they'll tap me on the shoulder. And when I was in Indiana, Pat's actually from Indiana, and I was visiting him before we got married. And we went to a park that was there. They wanted me to do some healing work on the land in the park. So we went there. And they would come up, and you'd hear them. Sometimes they're completely quiet, but sometimes you can hear them. And they would do this on the back of my head. And I would feel them. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And they are not opposed to getting in the water, as a couple of our viewers know. They are not opposed to it at all. They're not fearful of the water. They swim fantastic. They have the great lung capacity to be able to hold their breath for large amounts of time.
I never would have thought of that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, overbuilt, that doesn't surprise me. We have got so many cryptids on our planet right now that we actually don't know what their names are or what they are. The Bigfoot call them a Makaya, and that means to them, he that walks the earth that has no name, is what I was told. So what that means is it's just a cryptid without a name, and that's a blanket name that they use for these ones that we don't know what to call them.
Now, do you think that's like, is the ETs bringing them here, or?
One way, yes. Our government isn't helping. I will say that.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
But the ETs do create a lot of cryptids, and they have no problem dropping them off here. They, a lot of things they do. Our government also gets involved in things to a certain extent, but the majority of the cryptids, I personally believe, and from the ETs have told me, that's where they come from. Brian's absolutely right. He said they know your intentions better than you do, and they 100% do. They know your heart. If you think you're going to pull something over on them, you are so sadly mistaken. You can't fool them. You can look them in the eye and tell them that you're going to protect them and love them, but in your heart, you have any amount of malice towards them or think that you're going to bag one to make a name for yourself, they know it. They absolutely know it.
Yeah. I was reading this here. Primal cry. Fresh we coexist with forest people and dog people. They have some very good stuff on there.
Yeah, they do. And just
awesome.
because they didn't have enough abilities and they needed more to kick in the works, they can shapeshift. And I've seen them do it. So I know for a fact. A lot of this stuff, like when I talk about it, I don't necessarily not that I don't believe some of the stuff that's written. If it makes sense, or I'll ask them, I'll say, hey, I just read this, is this true or not? But 99% of it, 0.9, is that I've experienced, or it comes from something that they personally have taught me themselves and explained to me, or it's come from people that I know and trust that I know are completely legitimate. And then if it comes from them, I generally will say, hey, this information I got from this person, I don't want to take credit for anybody else's stuff ever.
Yeah. What was it like over in Russia or Siberia?
I was treated fantastic. Like, really and truly, I was treated wonderfully. Igor Borstev was the head of it, who, of course, is a dear family friend. And this is when I had first met him. We got to be really good friends after. But I was treated very well. And the people there could not have been any nicer in any way. Moscow, we flew into Moscow, and then we took a plane from Moscow, took a 5-hour flight to Siberia, and then up into the Green and Black Mountains where the conference was. We stayed at one lodge one night and another lodge the rest of the time. Mm-hmm. And Moscow, there's a lot of angry people in Moscow. Like, the people I encountered were very kind. Like, I never had any issue with being treated unkind or going without or anything like that. They made sure that anything I needed was there for me. And of course, Igor always kept a watchful eye on everybody at the conference. He's a great host. We had a lot of really great people. John Bendernagel, Ron Moorhead. I mean, we had some great people there. We really and truly did. We had some scientists there. Had a lovely woman that had an encounter where one had come up to her. She fell asleep while her husband was fishing and her arm was hanging out of the car, and a white Bigfoot came up and stroked her arm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It really and truly was wonderful. And they could not have been any nicer. We went up in the mountains. I did get a sighting, and I was trying to get Igor to get him over there to say, hey, look, there's this black Bigfoot over here. You can see it, but he was being interviewed for one of the newspapers. And so he missed it all. We went into that, and I God help me, I'm pronouncing it wrong, Azis Cave. And there was a lot of evidence in there. And it was later said, somebody, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not naming names, said, oh, it was fake evidence. There's nothing fake about it. And at the time that the evidence was found, he was there in front when it was found, and he was jumping up and down all happy about the discovery. So, you know, it was very legitimate. We found a place where there was a nest inside this cave, and it looked like a birthing chamber in there, as well as multiple footprints. So it was fabulous. It was a once in a lifetime trip. I have no regrets about going at all.
Do they over there? Do they accept the Bigfoot thing more than we do over here?
I thought they did. Yes, I felt like they absolutely did. They got more excited about it. Back then, you know, this was back in like 11 or 12, you know, and when I went there, I didn't talk about the paranormal stuff there because I wasn't sure what to expect. I had known about it, you know, but I talked more about the flesh and blood aspect, and that's primarily what was discussed at the conference. Privately, we might have talked about some of the paranormal things, but to the public, it was more flesh and blood. And in the flesh and blood situation, I felt they were very, very excited about the discovery and very energetic about it. And I didn't think that they were nearly as difficult as far as to get people to listen and believe. I think they just were just so excited that they were there. That was the feeling I got there. And like I said, the whole conference itself, people were wonderful. You know, there was a couple sticklers in there that I could have done without, but hi, Gemini. But for the most part, I was treated wonderfully, except, you know, like I said, by one person.
Yeah, I just wondered, like, I kind of figured they probably accepted it more.
It was a trip of a lifetime. And the thing that was so funny, the Wall Street Journal was there. And there was a gentleman, and I hope I get the name right, Alan Collier. He worked for the Wall Street Journal, and God bless his soul, because Igor was trying to translate for me because I am totally inept at speaking Russian. Igor's tried for years. I suck at it. I don't even try anymore. And so Igor, of course, is running a conference. He can't stand by my side and translate. And they had gotten 2 translators for the group, and they were busy with the group. And so this wonderful Alan Collier from the Wall Street Journal was there, and he was actually from the States, I believe, but he spoke English. And so he kind of took me under his wing, and he helped me out a lot because I didn't know what anybody was saying. And so that was wonderful. And then when I came home, to begin with, when I got there, I thought what happened in Russia stayed in Russia. That was, you know, my mindset. I didn't know the research field. I didn't know anybody when I went to Russia. I hadn't been on Facebook other than for a couple months because Igor put me on there. I knew nothing about anybody. All I knew was what was going on in my world my whole life with these things. And so we get there, and I get off the flight to Siberia. It's the middle of the night, and I get nothing but flash bulbs in my face because I'm a American woman now in Russia, and I hang out with the Bigfoot. And I mean, talk about being overwhelmed. Up until that point, I lived at home with my kids, my animals, and my cryptids. That's all I knew. I wasn't out running around. I wasn't all over Facebook. I wasn't doing shows. And I thought, okay, it's in Russia. This isn't going to embarrass my family, most of which I didn't talk too much about it. And the kids knew about it, but I thought, I don't want to embarrass them with their friends. You know, they're in school still. And then I walk off this plane, and it's light bulbs going off and off and off. And the governor was there, and the press was there, and it was just overwhelming. And a lot of the other people, hi, Mama, the other people had more experience than I did as far as the public. You know, maybe not cryptid experience, but experience with the public. And so, and they were highly skilled with the cryptids as well. I mean, they really, but I was like, holy Toledo. And I had been on a flight. My flight got delayed. I got there late because there was a problem with my passport. So I was like 28 hours on a flight getting there, because it was like 23 hours getting to Moscow, then a drive to the airport of a couple hours, plus a 5-hour flight to Siberia. I was a walking dead woman by the time I got there, and then everything just erupted. So I got back to the hotel, got a little bit of sleep, did the conference, And I'm thinking, this is just crazy. Like, press is everywhere you turn around. It was just unbelievable. And I stayed a couple days after the conference just to kind of decompress. And it was wonderful. I got to meet the townspeople in Tushkagal, which was near where the conference was at. And they were lovely. Other than they kept coming up and giving me a gift of fish. I don't eat fish. I can't stand the smell of it. Never have liked it. And they kept giving me fish as a gift that they would catch that day in the river and streams. And I'd be like putting it in my hand and hiding it behind my back for Igor to take so he would eat it because I didn't want to insult them.
Yeah, right.
But I got back in the States and I went into customs to come back in, and I got pulled around in customs.
Oh no.
And I thought, oh my God, what did I do? And as I get pulled around in customs, my phone's blowing up because I'm now an American back in the United States. And so my kids can call me where it didn't work when I was in Russia. And I'm like, why is my phone going off? And these people have got me in customs. I said, what did I do? And they said, you're that lady. And I said, what lady? And they said, the one that plays with the Bigfoots and feeds them blueberry bagels. And I said, yeah. And they said, is it really true? And I'm like, you want to see the photos? And they're like, oh yeah. So they wouldn't let me out of customs. I showed them all the photos and they were like all going crazy. So then I answered the phone and my daughter-in-law calls me and she's like, you are on every major network there is. I said, what are you talking? I'm thinking nobody would know, And so I came home and it was just mass chaos.
Wow.
I had death threats. I had people stalking me. It was crazy.
That's up. That's crazy.
Yeah, I
But
did a
people
couple of
would be
small
that
conferences.
way.
Yeah, I did a couple of small conferences for Michigan for some people that I knew, and I just went back out in the woods with my cryptids and my kids and my critters, and I just left it at that. And I stayed on Facebook and I interacted that way, and I started helping people. I don't know it all. I'm never going to, but if I can help somebody or just be a sounding board so they have somebody to talk to, then I'm more than happy to do so. I don't charge. I never would, never will. It's just something that I think in this topic, we all have to help each other. So that's what I try to do. And so I just did my own thing until 4.5 years ago. And the foot said, I did help Melba with the study behind the scenes. I'm not a scientist. That's her job. And I helped with that. And then I went back to being quiet again until the Foots wanted me to come forward with what they really are. And now here I am. And Duke found me.
Right.
I blame Duke. He put me out all over the place.
It's all Duke's fault now.
All Duke's fault.
Have you wrote a book yet or anything, Robin?
Here's the thing about the book. Everybody's been on me for almost 8 to 9 years now to write a book. Hasn't gotten done. And last year at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, I had so many people ask me about the book. And I said, I swear to you, I'm going to do the book. Here's the status of the book. I'm on chapter 5. While I am currently sick in an isolation, I'm hoping to get it done and have it ready for the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. If not, it will be shortly thereafter. So if everybody, just wants to give me their name and a way to contact them as soon as it gets done, I will contact people. But yeah, I swore I'd never do it. There's a lot of things I'll put in it, a lot of things that they've taught me that I won't, just because it could be used against them. But my own personal experiences, well, a lot of them, not everything. If this book goes well, I'll do more. I'll put more of the in-depth nitty-gritty stuff in the second one. But yeah, we're going to see how it goes. Like I said, there are so many people out there putting books out there. They really don't need mine, but I keep getting asked. And so
we need you to write a book.
well, I'm working on it. Like I said, I'm on 5, chapter 5, and I'm surprised that it goes as quick as it does. And my husband said, you can't write a book that fast. And I said, but you know what? I don't need a storyline. I don't need a plot. I don't have to think up characters. I don't have to set up scenes. All I have to do is write down what I've already lived.
Yeah.
So it's a no thought process. It's remembering my life. So it's actually much easier to write it. And I have been very blessed. I have several people that have offered to go through and look at it, check errors and edit for me. So I've been very blessed that way. So yeah, I guess it's going to happen. God help everybody, but it's going to
happen. Right. Well, I know we're past the 2-hour mark, and I know you got the crud there. So
yeah,
I
You
know you
know,
got.
when I stay on the ivermectin, I do good. When I run out of ivermectin, COVID finds me one way or the other. And I almost died from it a year ago. And the only thing that stopped it, modern medicine failed me desperately, and I couldn't get hold of the ivermectin. And I finally asked for healers. And within 12 hours, I was feeling better. And then, God bless a very dear friend of mine, she had extra ivermectin and said, "Why didn't you tell me you needed it?" And she sent it to me. And so between the healers and the ivermectin, I came back, and I made it through it, but I didn't think I was going to. 9.5 weeks of it. And then I had it just a little bit, and it didn't last long. And I thought, fine, I'm good. And the other night, I started getting the sniffles, and within a matter of hours, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, and I tested positive again. So
That's
I'll be fine.
miserable.
This one isn't kicking my butt like the last time. This one, it's more isolating. Pat said, "Are you going to do the show?" And I said, "I'm sitting in bed anyway. What else?" I can't, I can't be out and about because I don't want to contaminate anybody. So
Right.
I've got this show today, and I've got Brian Bland and Mike Carroll's show, Pork and Beans, tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon Eastern time. So we shall see. And I'll go back to writing because there's nothing else to do while I'm sitting here being isolated.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on here. You got
Oh,
so
thank
much
you so
knowledge.
much, Chris. I was looking forward to it. The first time we talked, I really enjoyed it. And so I was really looking forward to it. So I hope the viewers enjoyed it. I had fun.
Oh, you're so knowledgeable, and you got.
It's all them. I don't take any of the credit because they are the ones that have shared their lives with me to an extent. And there's people out there that know a whole lot more than I do by a long shot. But I feel very blessed and thankful for what they have taught me. And I've met wonderful people along the way to help guide me when I needed it. And I give them a ton of credit. And I've met more wonderful people and the best friends that anybody could ever ask for with other researchers, so I've just been really blessed.
Yeah, I mean, you. I used to be the flesh and blood guy, but
Yeah,
now
I think everybody was at one time.
I just like hearing you, and there's others out there too,
Yeah.
And it's kind of turned it, for me. I think
Yeah.
they're supernatural portals,
They're just,
interdimensional.
they really are. And it's like, I spent years not putting that out because I didn't want to offend. I didn't want people to think I was crazy. And I knew it. I went so far as to have 2 different psychiatric evaluations done on me because I thought maybe I was the one that was crazy, but I didn't understand why everywhere else in my life I was sane, except all of these things kept happening. The UFO abductions and the ETs and the Bigfoots and the Dogmans and all these other little cryptids running around and the dimensionals. Hey, Tracy, and all of these other things. And so I was just like, maybe it's me. And nobody could find anything wrong with me. And I just stayed quiet about it. And, I think eventually it all comes around in time and you get to where you get old enough where you just don't care if everybody thinks you're nuts. Like I said, it's not that I want people to think I'm crazy. Oh, I hope so. If they ever have it again, I'd love to go back to Russia. It's not that I want people to think I'm crazy. I'm just gotten old enough where I'm not willing to conceal the truth anymore or put it in that neat little box. I can be careful on how I put it to get the truth out there. I don't want to have people's heads explode all over the place or frighten anybody. I would never want to frighten anybody because there is good and bad in this. But I'm not willing to lie for it. I never did. I never lied about it. I just would not go to those areas. I would only talk about the safe areas. And when I do a show, I always say to the people, do you want just flesh and blood? Do you want paranormal? Do you want a mixture of both or whatever? Your shows, I knew you covered both. You're welcome,
Yeah.
Brian. Thank you. But I do try to be respectful of who has me on their show and say, okay, what is it you're looking for from me? Like I do Vic Cundiff shows. Vic's been very kind to me, and his are mostly flesh that they talk about for the Dogman and the Bigfoot, and I've done those, and I've kept it flush. And then when he opened the paranormal show, he said, no, let's talk about the paranormal. So because that was a new area for him, I didn't get too crazy, I guess is the best way to put it. So I try to be accommodating, but for the people that really want to know the truth, I do try to put it in the easiest manner possible, but I'm not going to lie about it. I can't do it. I can't live with myself. And really, if you think about it, if you lie to people about this paranormal side, you are doing a massive injustice, because then they go out in the field with these cryptids and they don't know what to expect. And people get hurt, people get killed. That's the reality of it. And so I don't feel I'm being of a service to anybody. I think we're all supposed to help each other. I don't think that it's any one person's job. I think we have to rely on each other, and everybody has to do their part. So, the Bigfoots and asked me to come forward with what I know to a degree. Again, I won't say anything that I think they can be used against them. Ava May, they do it through energy. It's all energy work. That's how they taught me to do it. And so, yeah, they also will use herbs and things that they find out in the wild, and they make medicinal things. They have taught me a few things there, and so that's been helpful, but it's mainly through energy that they do the healings.
That's amazing that they've healed you. I mean,
they've saved my life 6 times, whether it's been through healings or stopping things from killing me, or saving me from falling off a cliff, or various things.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that.
Yeah, I don't know how I got lucky enough to have them in my life, but I really do. I just feel really blessed. I don't know what I would be without them, just because, I know my heart, I know the type of person I am, and they didn't create that person. But for myself, they've given me a gift that I can't even contemplate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jean. I'm doing better. It's not taking me down this time like it did the first time.
Yeah, I ain't felt good either. I don't think anybody has. I don't ever remember being this sick when I was younger. Never, ever, until the last 5 years. Yeah.
I've had health problems since I was in my 20s. And, I was well aware of it, and that's fine. I'm one of these people that health problems or not, I ignore it and do what I'm going to do anyway. But when COVID first hit, I was in the thick of it because I had my animal rescue going. Thank you, Susan. And I had to be out doing pet adoption events to find homes for these animals. I had to be out, going to the store and getting supplies, and out cleaning kennels and getting cleaning supplies, and doing all these things. And a friend of mine did the rescue with me, as well as Pat. And so all of these things were still going on. I did not get that opportunity to quarantine properly, but I was on the ivermectin. I had no issues for the first almost 2 years. It was, thanks, Georgia. But then it became a problem when the ivermectin came in short supply. So.
Yeah. Well, it was an honor having you on here tonight.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was so much fun.
We got to do this again.
And thank you, everybody, for popping in. I hope I didn't bore you to death, but it was fun.
No, you didn't. I got to get you on here again, because I know we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, you just let me know when. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I know the show tomorrow won't be short, because every time I'm on Brian Bland and Mike Carroll's show, it goes a long time. The one time we did the show, we were having very, very bad weather. And the only place I could get a signal in my house was in my bathtub. And so I put a chair in the bathtub, and I'm doing this live show in the bathtub. I was dressed. I wasn't taking a bath. But I happened to look over to the side, and no, that's not him. That's a different one. And as I did, there was a giant Bigfoot handprint on the wall of my bathtub, because I have a 3-sided tub. and on the wall was this giant handprint, and there was like 5 or 6 of us talking, and I'm going, guys, and they're all talking. I'm like, guys, and they said, what's the matter? And I panned the thing over, and there's this giant handprint, and Brian's like, you saw it live here on the Pork and Bean Show. Like, oh my gosh, I'll tell him about Primal Cry.
I don't think I've seen her. I'm gonna have to. You say at 1 o'clock tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's 1 o'clock Eastern. It's called Pork and Beans, and it's Brian Bland and Mike Carroll's show. Yeah, Nefertiti is definitely real.
I don't even know what they're talking about there.
Mike Patterson is who they're talking about.
He's the one that's got the that weird voice that talks to him. The big
maybe I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but I know Nefertiti is real.
So is that the name of a Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's the one that he has a lot of interaction with. He may have. I'm sure he does have more interaction with other ones, but that's his main one that I've seen him come out about. I think he really got a really unfair shake and was treated really poorly by people, but people are cruel.
If it's Sasquatch in Ontario, I think it's the name of it. The one, Mike's.
I think so.
I watch his videos, and the voice is amazing. Like, it's so low, and
they have a broader voice range than we have. They can get lower and they can get higher. You know, I mean, I don't know a lot of the vocals. Yeah. I completely agree. That's fresh. Mike Patterson is 100% genuine and legit. I would never say anything unkind about him. I think how badly he was treated a few years ago, there's no excuse on this planet for it. I think, he should be commended for coming forward with the information that he had. And, I have nothing but respect for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just the community, No one can get along.
We need to build each other up.
Yeah.
Just build each other up, not tear each other down.
Even if you have a different opinion, why get all out of whack about it,
And if you don't agree with somebody, nobody says, there's nowhere is it written that you have to say anything.
Right.
Scroll to the next post. Don't watch this show. Or just simply don't say anything. I mean, when we were kids, our parents used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
If you can't build somebody up, there's no reason to tear them apart. And like I said, I can't remember how long it was ago that I saw, everybody going after him. And I felt really bad because I've been asked on and off, if not often, but every now and then, if I think he's legit. And of course, I absolutely do.
Yeah. I just,
But you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for being so kind and listening. And yeah, the book is in the works. It's going to happen. God help all of us. But if anybody wants to message me, how to contact them or who wants them, then as soon as it does, if it's not done by Nebraska, as soon as it's done, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you can let me know, and I can put it out there.
Okay.
Too. I can share it on my page.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I swore I'd never do it, but I get asked a lot, and I figured, well, what the heck? Everybody else is doing a book. I don't really think we need another one, but if I'll put my information in there and go from there. And if it's well received, then I would write another one and just kind of continue down.
I don't think you'll have a problem there. I think.
Well, I hope people like it.
Everybody wants to hear your story.
Well, you guys have a wonderful night. And again, thank you so much, Chris. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody who showed up. And everybody have a blessed day or night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'll see you Sunday. I'll be back with Brendan Daniels, the new Region 5 director of the NAPD.
Cool.
All right. National. I tell you, there's so many initials and stuff anymore.
I know. I never get them right, and I'm always afraid I'm going to screw up something. I'm terrible with
North American Dogman Project's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always am afraid I'm going to get somebody's name wrong or, say something wrong, and I feel bad.
I know, me too.
But it was a lot of fun, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Good night, everybody.
Take care and stay in touch. Bye-bye.